What's going on, traders? How we doing out there? Who's ready to get back into the hot seat? I'll tell you what, guys, not a bad Monday, well, Tuesday for me, right? And so got a nice trade in the bank situation. Of course, that was trying to get ahead of the earnings, but the earnings looking good here, guys. Bank earnings starting to get going, and CPI just hit. Let's take a look at what's going on in the market. Let's see the action that's happening right now as we speak. SPY getting a quick jump there to 590s. And now I'm thinking, yeah, it's time for tech day today, guys. And AMD already getting a nice little lift. That was my top stock to watch. Already has a nice little $2 pop there. We'll talk all about it, but definitely you guys are seeing the SPY jump big right now, guys. It's up there about what, $6 already, guys. Getting a big jump there. You guys can see the SPY jumping, and all of this coming on the heels of the CPI. CPI coming in for month over month expectations at 0.4 versus a 0.4 expected here. CPI year over year was at 2.95 versus the 2.9. I'll give you guys these numbers right on the screen right here from Benzinga Pro. And you guys can see it for month over month, 0.2 versus a 0.3 estimate. So a little bit undercutting the expectations, and the core CPI also undercutting at 3.2 versus the 3.3. This is all good news for the markets, and the markets reacting just with that, guys. So nice positive action already getting started. And today's playbook is definitely going to be already probably in the green, but it's going to be hard to jump on these now as we're seeing them kind of get that nice push, but I'll be watching them. Let's talk a little bit about some of these names. First one up, I want to bring it in, is AMD, guys. I'm not going to even play the little bumper. Let's just take a look at it before it takes off. Gets a little bit too far away from me. As you guys are seeing, AMD up there to 118. What did I see on the daily chart that made me want to look at AMD? Well, AMD stood out to me because of this triple bottom action here off the 114.50s. Now I talked about it, and I was talking about this morning. Can we get back through the 119 showing strength? I think this is the move right here. I'll be watching to see when I can get some pullback on AMD, but now it's looking great, guys. And of course, the triple bottom around the 114, 145, 114.45 and 114.50, signaling that potential support. Bearish sentiment has dominated recently, but with financials potentially igniting a rally, AMD could see a momentum shift. So the financials helping it, CPI helping it, and now AMD going big, man. Up there almost to 118. A little part of me is like, man, should have just taken about the smallest share size right before the CPI, because I felt the CPI would get that up action with the market here. And there it is, guys. We'll see what happens with this one. Now I want to take a look at GOLD. Gold is one that I was looking at this morning to see if this would get a little bit of a lift. With this number, I don't know if I'm feeling as hot on gold as some others, as inflation is showing signs of down, not up. So we'll see what happens. The big level for me is seeing if it wants to come back here towards this prior support, acting as resistance. That's up there all the way towards the 1660s. Of course, yesterday I saw AU start going, and that's what started to give me the sign. I talk about how this one leads and GOLD lags. So now that AU is starting to get going, I could keep an eye out to see what happens there in Barrick Gold, of course. We'll see what happens in other names out there. Like always, guys, smash the like. I see a lot of you guys jumping in now on Twitter, on YouTube. Markets are moving as CPI comes in light and starts to get a rally going. So now, where do we go buying, right? Well, there's a lot of places, guys. Nvidia mentioning a quantum day is really getting things going in Nvidia today. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the Sunrise Report. But Nvidia already up there to 134, almost 135. This is going to help those quantum names start to get going here. So QUBT now trying to get back there through 9. This is one that I might trade right now in the smaller account. I got no problem taking the trade on this thing. We'll see if it gets back through 9 and gets that move. Rigetti is another one that could be getting that action. And you guys can see just recently a nice little spike back towards 10. And this one shaking the bottom off the 5, getting up there almost to 10. Where will this stop? Honestly, nobody knows right now. I think it's just riding the momentum. I think this is something definitely to keep your eyes open for. Last one on the playbook today is going to be none other than Apple, as I was looking to see if that the market would start to make the up move and Apple would shake the downside action move from the year. This was down already about 6%. And now there's hope on the technicals. There was this long-term trend line that I had already drawn. I had created this on November 29th. I updated it on the 8th just yesterday, slightly adjusted it there. No, on the 8th. That's like about a week ago. So now I'm looking to see if this can start to turn back around, right? This undercut and rally is exactly what I was looking for. Now 240s is the big level for me to watch on Apple. It looks great here, guys, and I'm feeling very positive about technology coming back today. And you guys can see it already with the XLK getting a nice little jump there towards the 232s. You guys can also take a look at SOXL. Look at the jump there from 28.50s now up there towards 30. So I think this is, as good as it gets right now. I mean, you're definitely seeing a couple of names get a big jump. So I'd keep an eye out on all the semiconductors today. They could be getting a nice little lift. Of course, the quantum names already pushing Ion Q, getting a little bit of a lift. A lot of those Nvidia mentions definitely helping this out. So let me know, guys, which of these setups are you most closely watching? Or maybe you feel bullish about AMD over Apple. Let me know in the chat, guys. Like always, we're going to go ahead and catch some comments out there. And you guys out there on X, you guys can always comment too. Just click the stream and then get in there and drop a comment. I'll be able to see it on our side. Let's keep things going. We're going to have a great show today. I'm going to keep looking into the market. It's time to make some money, like always, guys. Citi, though, ripping, guys, now to 77.85. These banks getting a nice little move today, guys. We'll talk about this, but you guys can see Citi 71 now, really pushing strong. JPM now starting to get the lift. I'm wondering if we got our restriction taken off on JPM right now. Citi was tradable, so you could have gone and gotten some Citi right now. That had been making a big move with the CPI. That's up from about 75 now to 78, up about almost 4% is Citi. Wells Fargo is one that we'll talk about. We're going to give all these earnings. We'll talk about them during the sunrise, but I just wanted to show you the charts because they're pushing and pushing. This is why I was watching the bank trade yesterday, because I felt like that was the day to try to get it, right? Of course, now the earnings come in. You don't know which way that's going to go. But now the positive sentiment's already in. There was positive trades yesterday, positive trades now. Now it's going to be hard to kind of get these banks, right? I'll be waiting for a pullback to see if I can jump on this train. But look at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. Those are other names that I'll be watching here. Goldman Sachs with some decent earnings right back to 592. Could be at 600 by the end of the day. We'll see what happens there. Nice little lift off of the 580 area. It's good to see you guys out there. Bullish, Gee. Let's go. Tesla and Nvidia. Yeah, Tesla's definitely one to watch, of course. There's a lot of talk out there with the kind of the lawsuit that was out there with the SEC, but that doesn't really matter right now. Tesla getting the lift there to 410 here off the 400s and now starting to approach that trend line approach. I think I need to see a close above 420 to be bullish on Tesla. I'm going to leave this one alone right now just because I feel like there's some other opportunities, but it's not a bad one to watch there. I like Nvidia over that Tesla just because it's on the lows, it's on the lows, on the lows. And a lot of times what happens is that bigger traders, right, are looking at the weekly, they're looking at the monthly, right? And then they're starting to see, okay, well, right around here, there's some support around the 126. Can it get back there to the 150 is something to think about. Well, that's going to be another thing to think about. But I'm looking at this as maybe getting back towards 140 and just staying within the price consolidation. And that's what I could see here. We'll see what happens there on Nvidia and different names. Definitely AMD, I lean more towards just because of the bottoming action that I see on the chart. And then I take a look at a name like Micron that was starting to try to make a move and then ran into the overall market, right? The overall market can just do that to you. So I'm keeping an eye on Micron, on Marvell. Another one that we can look at is AVGO, right? AVGO has been trying to make that move, has been going sideways on the daily, now has support right underneath it, now can start approaching right back into the trend. And so I'm looking for a trend line break back up towards, let's say, 237, 240s, 250s come into play on AVGO. And this is one of the best right now. And I think sometimes you got to stick with the best on a day like today and see if Microsoft or Google can get going with some quantum comments, right? Of course, Google had been getting up there to the 200, could go right back to the 200 and start looking like a great chart in the market versus something that's struggling and going sideways. Right now, I think this is just more price consolidation, trying to distinguish and get some volume down towards the 190s before they break it out through the 200s. So this is not a bad one to watch, and we'll see if Google can break that 200. Well, shout outs to Starbucks again this morning, as I don't have my coffee up just yet. But Starbucks definitely is one that I'll be watching. Bros have been making a really big move, and I'm definitely a Dutch Bros fan. Up there now to 61. Not a bad looking stock, guys. This was down at 30s. Now it's going back towards the highs. And this is one that I always believed in, kind of the bear market. I was waiting for the turn back through 30s, and that's exactly what happened. And we started to really get the strength. And right, so when this went back through 30s, it started to hold, and really it was all about November. And November really kicked things off for Bros, as it's killing things. And I think this is just a sign that Starbucks in the long run is running out of time to stay in the lead. It was the market leader. It's going to continue probably being the market leader for now, just because the amount of stores that are out there. But in the long run, I think, Starbucks has lost its competitive advantage of, let's say, customer service or things like that. It's not the coffee that keeps people going. I think it's more the customer service that has kept Starbucks alive. We'll see what happens there, guys. Man, Starbucks, will they get the lift today back through the 100 though? It could happen. It could happen. It's something that I'm keeping an eye on. I know a lot of people are watching this one for investments. All right, let's keep it going, guys. Let's take a look around in the market. Energy, what will happen today with basic materials and different areas in the market. Yesterday, healthcare taking a really hard beating. So we'll be watching to see if there's some further downside in names like Eli Lilly down there to 752. But let's go back to the overall market here. Let's take a look at the SPY. How are we trading on that since the CPI report? Of course, we got the spike, and we're holding, man. We're holding very little pullback right now, and we could see continued liftoff. So I'm looking at AMD right now, and I'm thinking about just scalping it through the 118s here. But I could also play maybe QUBT on the smaller side of things. And that was down to the 70s, now already getting the pop towards the 80s. It's starting to make the move here. I don't mind playing this on the smaller side of things on, let's say, the smaller account here. So let's see what happens here. Hourly trying to get back there through the 9. I think it could make a run there into the 9s, into maybe potentially 10 here. So I don't mind maybe taking a trade right now. Let's go ahead. Let's set up here for it. I'm looking for a small little pullback on here, but I don't mind getting a little bit of a starter here into the 890s. It could pull back here towards the 860s here in just a second. So I'm looking at it to see if I can get some type of pullback to the 9 EMA back towards the 80s here instead of buying up the 90s. But looks pretty good there. I would even like it back at the 75s, right? That's what I was looking at for this kind of trend line approach, the 80 break. We just broke it. Now could be heading into the 9s. You could also take a look at QMCO to see how that's pushing, and that is pushing. You can see from 26 to 27 on that one. Just the spread is a little wider. IonQ already lifting too towards 33. So you're going to be able to watch a lot of these names today that were hot, could continue hot today. So we'll see what happens. QSTX. Is that what I got there? Let me see. Is that OSTX? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's OSTX. There you go, OSTX. Let's take a look at that one. Smaller name here. OSTX trying to get back through the 660s. I like this look and how it's setting up. 15-minute chart looking interesting. I like that little dip that it just did where it tried to cut through the 6 and now coming back through the 660s. This is going to be one that will definitely be on the radar today. We'll see if it can get back through 7 right now in the pre-market, but it's definitely a setup here that I'd be keeping a very close eye on. I'd like to see it go back down one more time towards 6 and then come back through 7 towards the open, but it could do it right now. We'll see what happens here. 673 starting to show up. The strength coming in here now as it starts to break towards the 680s. Let's see if it really takes off through the 8s. You know what? Let's have some fun, man. This is part of the smaller stocks. And this is not a bad name right here. So let's see if we can get a little bit of a lift here. I might take a small trade here and just see if I can get the push there. There's already 690s. I'm looking for a pullback here to get in on the 80s maybe. So let's go ahead. I'm going to put out the order there at the 80s there. I'm getting some buying power block right there. So we'll have to check it out there. Maybe let me see if I go a little lower here. I can get it. Yeah, I got 400 shares out there at the 680s here. Looking to see if I can get a little quick pullback fill here. Let's see if I can get a little pullback fill, and then it takes off into the sevens. But looked pretty good there in the 680s. So I have it right now up towards like 675, trying to get a fill here. Let's see if I get the fill. We'll find out on OSTX if it really starts to get going. But I think you could still get one more dip right before the open. So if I do play it now, it'd be more of that scalp mentality. I'm going to cancel out for right now. I just want to be focused towards the open. I don't want to get driven into a stock right now. And next thing you know, I'm stuck in it. So I'm watching it right now. We'll see what happens there on OSTX. It still looks good for the 7 pop, but I think you could still hit a 9 EMA attempt back down towards like 593s and then comes back up. So I'll be keeping an eye on that one. Wrap is another one that I'm seeing up on the action. We'll keep going through different stocks. You guys drop them in the chat. It's always good to see you guys out there. Let's go, guys. All right. Talking about some, looks like some Forex there, Euro and USD. Unfortunately, we don't trade the Forex market or kind of commodities and things like that. That's for more your futures trades, right? We do equity trades here. So we're going to be trading stocks, right? So we'll see what happens. If you got a stock you want me to take a look at, though, I got no problem in watching that. All right, guys, you guys out there that are just joining in, smash the like. We'll keep it going, guys. Let's go. We're almost towards 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., I'll be having Michael Nauss. And guess what? We'll be having 2 Michaels today. As the CEO, of course, joins from Trade the Pool, Michael Katz will be trading with us also. So smash the like, guys. And we got some other segments today, some cool segments. So stick around, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Excited to go ahead and keep things going, guys. So like always, guys, smash the like if you guys enjoy the action here. And if you guys could do me a favor, like always, hit that share button down below. Let everybody know this is the stream you want to be at, guys. All right, we'll see what happens here. OSTX still trying to make the move. It did pull back into like the 60s and 50s, so it probably would have got caught on that dip. We'll see if it starts to get back hot and goes through 7 during the open. I'll be watching that one. I set the alert at 698, so let's see if it gets back there. All right, looking around, team, and we'll be getting started in just a second here. Give me one quick second, and I'll be right back with you guys. All right, traders, I'm back here and ready to keep going with you guys. And you guys out there, let's jump into the sunrise report. Let's talk about the bank reports out there that came out today. We'll be going through all that action right now, guys. You guys smash the like. We'll talk more about CPI during the show. I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to go deep inside the CPI report to show you guys exactly how you guys will be doing the same today. So smash the like if you guys are excited to learn more about things like this, where you guys can do the research. You don't need to be looking at any media to understand what's happening in the market. All right, guys, let's keep it going, guys. Let's go to the sunrise report today. Take a look at what we can find in the markets, guys. Smash the like. first up, let's talk about JPM, the leader, right? And you guys can already see it leading, right? Starting to get the jump. I was talking about how I was maybe taking the trade off of that pullback there. Wasn't able to trade it, of course. We have it blocked still here, but we'll see what happens on JPM as it starts to make a nice little climb back towards 255. It was actually my best trade yesterday. I was able to buy JPM on the pullback around the afternoon, and I just set a trade on my phone, set it, forget it, made a nice little $200 on that. So we'll see what happens if JPM can continue going today. Their earnings came in at $4.81 a share on EPS versus a $4.11 estimate. So big beat on the EPS there. Revenues at $43.74 billion, beat the $41.73 billion expected. The highlights here, they've surged on profit 50%, guys, to $14 billion, with costs falling 7% year over year. This is exactly what you want to see in the space to get things hot. This, to me, is not a move that's just going to happen today. Yes, it could have a little bit of a pullback in the next day or two, but I think in the long run, we need to watch financials as being one of the hottest areas to watch in 2025. Net interest income coming in here and exceeding the estimates, also showing the strength there. It beat by about $400 million to $23.47 billion. Investment banking revenue also jumped 45%. This is something else to look for, right? As, of course, in the Trump administration, everyone's expecting him to help the stock market. Well, investment banking made some pretty good money there in Q4. Trading revenue rose 15% in Q4. Analysts would likely question CEO Jamie Dimon about the succession planning and rate cuts impact. So we'll see what happens there. Let's keep it going. Let's go to Wells Fargo, as it's not far low today. It's definitely getting a nice little lift there as it gets a push here. Wells Fargo came in with $1.42 per share versus a $1.32 expected. And it's growing here. The guidance is expected to grow here. So not looking too bad there. The net interest income here to grow 1 to 3% in 2025, sending shares up 3%. Let's move over to Goldman Sachs as we take a look at the Goldman sucks, but it's winning today as it's up there now towards 592.50s. We'll look to see if it gets through the 600 spot. Earnings at $11.95 a share versus $8.22 expected. Think on the beat there? Hell yeah. On revenues also beat, big beat there, 13.87 versus 12.39 billion expected. Driven by what? Strong trading revenues. Shares climbing here about 1.8, but now higher. Now it's about 2.6%. If you look at it from yesterday's closing action, it's up already 4%. So keep your eyes on it. It's getting a nice little push here. Even BlackRock, let's take a look at that. BlackRock getting a nice little push there. Their earnings coming in at $11.93 per share versus an $11.19 expected. So all big beats, right? Revenue actually came in line with this one. Assets under management, though, grew to $11.55 trillion from $11.475 trillion, boosted the shares 3% in the pre-market. We'll have to see what happens there. All right, guys, like always, the earnings flood continues right now as Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, and Wells Fargo reported today, followed by Bank of America and Morgan Stanley, right? Morgan Stanley and Bank of America will be coming in tomorrow, so keep your eyes on how those stocks trade today. Will today's CPI print spark a bigger rally or send the markets into a cool down? Well, we got that answer. Definitely a bigger rally started here. Now, the question is, well, can it continue? We'll take a look at that action. And of course, we'll talk more about some trading action coming up with Michael Katz and Michael Nauss. So smash the like, guys. We got another great show for you here on TTP Live, guys. All right, guys, let's keep it going. It's about to be 9 a.m. We're about to really kick things off into the trading action. But just wanted to talk about some setups here. QUBT was one that I was watching, but OSTX there, guys, is going for the move here. For the 7 break. There's the 7 break there, guys. Let's see if maybe I'll take a shot here right as the boys get in here on OSTX. It doesn't look bad there, but it keeps rejecting the 7. Every time it taps it, it keeps rejecting it here. So we'll see what happens on that OSTX. That's a biotech. Like always, you know how those are. A little dangerous to play with. But if you like catching knives and playing with fire, well, guess what? Today might just be that, right? So all right, guys, we're going to kick the show off. We're going to get into some more trading action. And, of course, we'll take a look at what stocks are on the radar. And if you guys have a stock on the radar, throw it up in the chat. It's good to see you guys out there. What's up out there? VMR. That's not a bad one there. Also, Steph saw that one moving. Eric, it's good to see you guys. It's good to see all you guys in the chat. Let's kick things off. Let's bring on Michael and start the countdown. Today, it's going to be Michael Square Day. We got 2 Michaels coming in. I don't know how we're going to do this. Maybe we might have to actually start calling Michael Katz his nickname. We'll ask him when he comes on. Let's kick the show off. Start that countdown. Wants 200, baby. You ready to get back to the trading action?
You aim, you shoot, and make money.
It's going to be a great day. You guys know where you're at. All right, traders, let's get it started. Let's bring in Michael Nauss. How we doing today? It's good to see you, my friend.
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself? What a boring CPI print, eh? I'm looking, nothing's moving.
Yeah, man. I mean, I honestly think that, like, I don't know how people were a little bit bearish coming into the CPI report today. I think that this is when you have to look at not trying to tame your expectations because of the estimates, right? The analysts are just estimating something. There's a whole other thing in actually looking for the print, right? As soon as the print came in light, I was like, oh, Katie barred the door. Everyone caught on the wrong side as everyone was getting bearish really quickly. That's always a sign for me, right? And I talk about it. I'm a bear too. But when it happens quickly and everyone's on my side, I start jumping ship and I say, all right, well, if everybody's getting bearish, I need to flip. I need to be more into the bullish camp, looking to where the opportunities can be. Yesterday, we talked about potentially the bank financials coming in, right? The earnings coming in and really kickstarting things. I think that's exactly what we're seeing today. Banks, did you see those earnings? All pretty good there, Michael. Yep. At least huge beats on those EPS. I mean, when Sachs kills it, but man, like $3 or $4 beat on that EPS.
And with no increase in inflation, right? No excuse for the Fed not to cut rates. That's going to probably help a lot of these things even more, right? So we talked about KRE yesterday. And how interest rate sensitive that guy is. And this morning's candle on the daily chart just ripping, right? So spent a little bit of time under that prior resistance and just rocketing. So yeah, I think a lot of the banks, we're going to see a lot of the same with XLF, the big guys still doing well. So a good day to be a banker, I guess. Yeah. So good for them. Let's just.
I was taking a look at that XLF yesterday. It seemed like we could really kick things off with the banks. I think that's a good chart definitely to watch. Of course, technology also like with the XLK, you could see how it's really starting to bring things back now, right? A little bit of that undercut type of look. And I think that now we need to be watching the stocks that kind of led that downside action, which was a lot of Nvidia, right? I mean, so I'll be watching to see if those kind of stocks come back. What's on your radar? What should traders be watching out there, Michael?
Well, as always, right, I started off here with the heat map just to see what's going on. And, we mentioned for the last week or so, a lot of kind of inflation hedging going on. We saw a lot of commodities, a lot of metals doing very, very well. And now that I think, some of that interest rate risk has been alleviated in some way, everyone's kind of chilling out a bit. I think the opposite. Right. So now we're going to start getting that kind of the stuff that people were really, really worried about and getting into because they were worried about interest rates. That's going to flip. Right. And when you want to think about when interest rates are lower, that benefits your unprofitable companies more than your profitable companies. So when it comes to generally small caps and micro caps, they're going to do better in lower interest rates. When it comes to things like XBI, biotechs, right? Generally, these are companies that aren't making money, but they're researching something that will make them a bunch of money in the future. Those are up phenomenally. Bitcoin, obviously, doing fantastic. I think it's hilarious that some people think they call Bitcoin an inflation hedge, but it does the exact opposite. Like when people are worried about inflation, Bitcoin goes down, and when they're not worried about inflation, Bitcoin goes higher. So yeah, just a complete flip of what we've seen. feels like a moment of relief, I think, for a lot of the market that was worried that potentially inflation was going to reinflate, and then we weren't going to have the rate cuts that we have. So, with that out of the way, at least for now, then yeah, we're seeing a lot of these, like WGMI up 5%, Bitcoin up 5%, ARK up 3.5 or sorry 4% now. So yeah, a lot of unprofitable kind of tech names and everything leading the charge, at least for today.
All right. And yeah, clearly can see that in the heat map, right? We'll be continuing to watch the heat map. And you guys out there, if you guys have any questions on different areas, feel free to, of course, drop them in the chat. We'll try to catch them before we get to the market open. Let's go ahead and bring on Michael Square Day here as we kick things off. How we doing, Michael? What's going on, man?
Hey guys, what's going on? How you doing, everybody? Great to be here.
Like yeah, so Michael, I was talking to the chat and I was telling them, I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do here because with two Michaels, we're gonna have to start using the nickname. I don't know if we're gonna have to start going with the Mickey, man.
Not sure about the Mickey. Let's keep it official. Let's say.
Yeah, but one thing's for certain. I got two Michaels with me. So I got Michael on this shoulder, Michael on this shoulder. So I feel like putting myself in the middle, right? Like, here you guys go, right?
I was about to say, which one's the good and which one's the evil, right?
Hey, we're going to have to find out. Who wins today, right? Exactly. That's what it'll probably be. Let's take a look at what's going on out there. Like always, guys, you guys can drop in some stocks out there. We're going through some of the watch lists that Michael Nauss is looking at right now. But of course, Michael, if you got any stock that's on your radar out there, feel free to jump in.
Sure.
I'm loving the look of Tesla, but I just want to start here with the SPY. And this is just a 5-minute chart just to show the lack of give back, right? And that's when you get one of these earnings reports. That's the first thing I look for is how much, when the profit taking comes in, does it push into the gap there? And this, they haven't tried at all. So we talked a little bit about the tweaks that I made to the algorithm yesterday, looking just mainly on the short side. I can get those numbers for you guys later. I did a lot of work on it again last night. Only came up with one result to look at for today. And someone actually, I think, is it Steph there? No, Rando's talking here in chat. FMA. So the idea here was, again, this is looking for candles that are just really unusual for the stock, abnormal candles, and we're looking to play those the following day, either through a mean revision short, so if it extends, or if that looks like that candle is going to start to fade. So FMA is the only thing I have on watch today for the paper trading while I'm testing out this algo, and the numbers are kind of 750 and 650, right, if it can get through there. But if you look at this thing, this has just been crazy. And it's funny, Fannie Mae, I started trading in 2008. I haven't heard anyone mention Fannie Mae since 2008, I think. So it's kind of cool to see these things pop up on the radar just because, right, they're purely algorithmic. I got no idea what's going on. I thought this was government owned at some point, but looks like it could be an interesting trade. And what a move from $2 up to $7 in almost a straight line as a mortgage lender of all things. So looking for this to maybe fade a little bit and come down just a little bit if we can get that kind of market action, which it doesn't look like we're seeing any give back at all in this so far.
The good old mute button. All right, guys. So, of course, yeah, we'll take a look at that SPY action. And a lot of times we get these big rips off of these economic data, right? And now the question is, will we come back into yesterday's range, right? That's what I'll be looking at to see if we even come back, right? So right now I'm looking at this as a good day opportunity, right? And I think that all those themes that came back down are going to be watched today, right? And so if you have those themes, whether it be Bitcoin, quantum, I'll throw in another one to add a caveat. What about DJT? What about DJT, guys? We're 5 days away from Trump taking over, and that setup is looking interesting for me. If you look at it on the daily setup, this looks like it's been kind of roaring and getting ready to go here. So, I mean, right before Trump takes office, I mean, it's something to look at. I'll say that.
Yeah, a lot of congestion there, right? It just spent a long period of time, especially even when the market was selling. It didn't really go down too much, just hanging out between 38 and 30, 34. So $4 range, and a $4 range for DHT is tight, right? This thing's a pretty volatile name. Got that breakout 2 days ago, came back and retested it almost to the tick yesterday. Looks like it's holding with a little bit of a bounce with the market. Yeah, so I think for a swing, especially, right, or even for a day trade, these prior highs right here that it rejected around $43 could be an interesting play on that. Interesting momentum play, obviously kind of meme stocky, right? It's one of those that when it gets going, it gets mentioned on a lot of chat rooms and message boards and stock twits and all that kind of stuff. So a very momentum driven name for sure.
All right, let's kick it to my other Michael as we kick things off. Michael, feel free if you want to share your charts or what are you looking at in the market today. I know you usually start off with looking into kind of the overall market and the NQ and you look into, you cover all different type of assets, but let us know, what are you seeing right now in the market?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm sharing my screen for a sec. So obviously the Nasdaq did a great move to the upside. You know, I'm a Nasdaq guy, so I would definitely watch it for today, the cues to trade it. Other than that, I'm looking at the VIX, and there's a nice move down right here at the bottom right. The VIX dropped nicely and reaching those areas of support. And in most cases, you know, when VIX reaching support, it will bounce, and that means that the market should shift. We need to see if we hold in that support, if we can hold it. If so, I will try to find a way to short the market. I'm not buying those push up, you know, after the data and all that just came out. I'm more of I'm like a short bias generally in that time of the year. So I'm expecting another down move. Hopefully we will get it. Besides that, I'm looking at other stocks like Hood, Robinhood, HODD, OODD, yeah. So a nice push again after the data came. But besides that, looking at the hourly chart, you can see that we're playing around the area of the previous high, 43.83. So that also looks pretty good to the downside, actually, for me. You know, maybe a quick push to the downside as we open. So this is one on my radar. The other one, obviously, finance. So Wells Fargo and JP Morgan after earnings. Also interesting to watch.
All right, let's get some chat comments here. A couple comments coming in, and they're saying they're loving the snow, man, in the background. My man got a blizzard back there.
I'm not. You guys come. If you guys love it, you come up here and shovel it for me. How about that?
There you go. That's what they don't know, Michael. They don't know that it's hard work and that snow. I know I miss the snow as being a Colorado guy, but yeah, looking around out there, and looks like we're going to mention about Dropbox. I'm going to take a look at this, Michael Nauss. It looks like there was a big move yesterday, and QUBT out of nowhere. Yeah, well, I think QUBT, you know, woke up with that CPI print, but let's talk about that Dropbox.
Dropbox is very interesting here, right? Strong name. Came up to fill the gap right here around $31, backed off, and has just kind of been flagging ever since. So one thing I would note is that, right, the whole market is ripping right now. We're seeing a lot of the indexes up 2-3%, and not that one. So ETF, but Dropbox, when I turn on pre-market action, isn't really moving much. It could just be a liquidity thing, right? Maybe this just doesn't get enough action in the morning in order to be super interesting. But with ARK up, 4% and XHB even up 3%, I would pay attention to things that aren't moving today and be a little bit worried about them. So if it's just a liquidity thing, then we'll wait, and you'll generally see it try to catch up in the market open. But yeah, it's a nice looking little flag if it can get above that. Qubit.
Yeah, what I see on Dropbox, I see the 50 EMA keeps holding in the last pretty much 5 or 6 times on those pullbacks. That's going to be the yellow line. You can see it since pretty much August. 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts there towards breaking towards the 50 EMA and holding it pretty well. Of course, just right now, the 50 EMA is a little bit lower than where it came to, but it's reversing right off of that area. So that tells me more and more, as long as it can keep holding that on pullbacks, this seems like to me a nice trend trade that people are just riding the trend higher, right? Until it breaks the trend, right? The trend's your friend until it isn't. In this case, it seems like it's your friend.
Yeah, so we're going to look at Qubit, right? A lot of these things, yeah, they're bouncing, but you have to just look at the damage done on this chart with these quantum names. Yes, it's up a couple percent today. It's up 6%, but it just dropped 50, so or more, right? Some of them are 70% or longer. So yes, but me and Mitch talked about this yesterday. We kind of expect a bounce, and I think you have to watch to see if this is just a dead cat bounce, kind of the last hurrah. When you have a sector that one guy can say one thing and it loses 50 to 70% of its value, I think you got to understand that these are momentum and kind of speculative names. So very sentiment driven. If people are super excited about them, if we see another report from Google or wherever it is saying, yes, quantum computing is closer, you need to see somebody out there with as much of respect and, oomph behind his name as Jensen, kind of negating that, saying, no, this is something that we can actually do. Other than that, I just look at this saying there's a lot of, I always look for bag holders, right? A lot of people out there in something like a Qubit that was long around $17 and watched it completely fall to $6. Just fell completely out of bed. Those people are doing something that we've all done, but we know we shouldn't. And just saying, hey, if I can get back to even, I'm going to sell this thing, right? And that's going to create this overhead supply it has to get through. So for me, I'm not interested in any of these momentum type names until those bag holders can be alleviated in some way, which would just mean, again, just a rip through kind of these prior highs, or just a massive news event of a company or someone coming out and saying, we are much further along in quantum computing than Jensen said, and someone with enough of a reputation that people will believe it and buy it, right?
Yeah, today we're getting some support for that, right? And we talked a little bit about it before you guys hopped on. It was the Nvidia mention, right? And so Nvidia is holding now a quantum day after looks like their CEO kind of really powed these quantum names right back down. But now it looks like the PR, at least the PR side on Nvidia is like, well, CEO, please calm down with that, right? Because we're probably in this space also. So maybe we're not the leaders in this space just yet, but we could be, right? So let's not ruin that. So they came out with now they're going to do their first quantum day, right? And this is going to be on Thursday, March 20th. So we're still ways away from it, right? Ways away. So there's another thing that could happen here, right? In my eyes, I'd be watching these stocks closer towards that date than particularly right now. But one thing to mention here is the names that were added in here. So they said that they're going to be, he's on with the CEO, right? But they're going to be bringing on these companies. So these are the companies that I'd keep an eye out on for, because these are the ones that could get a run. Maybe there's one here that hasn't gotten a run that now could get going. So I'd be looking into all of these names to take a look and create a watch list, right? You could just create a watch list, name it quantum, and just watch the action happen, right? And I think that that's the important thing. I know you do things like this all the time, Michael. Hey, there you guys have it. And I'll be nice. I'll help you guys out, right? I'll give you guys the link directly to this. This is Nvidia's website. This is where they released it. So if you guys want to take a look and do a little research, well, there it is for you guys. All right. So we'll definitely be watching that action. What's up, Michael?
I was just saying that's super important just to do that work to create the list, because there are a few things in trading more annoying than being right on a theme, but not having done the research enough to catch the trade, right? So if it's one of those things where, imagine, you're watching one or two of these quantum names and then this event happens, and those are the ones that don't move. So you were right to watch the event. You were right inside the theme of quantum computing, but you just didn't have that watch list together. You didn't do enough research on a lot of those. And the beauty of, as you said, it's a while away, so you have the time to go through. So just write off some time in your schedule if quantum computing is something really interesting to you, and then start to go through and make sure that you have that list ready to go, so you know exactly what it is that you're going to trade, and have your levels, put out your alerts, right? And we got all this technology to help us be better traders. So just make sure it's not you're not just holding one and hoping that that's going to be the one that works, so that you've got some diversification within the sector there.
Definitely something to watch. We'll see what happens in those quantum names, and I'll be watching different themes, of course. And I think that today is definitely one of those days where you got to know the themes. You got to know what stocks you're looking at before the open here, and we'll see if we get some pullback out the open. This could also be one of those days where I talk about where like the SPY and the Q just don't even come back to the VWAP. And if that happens, those are the days where I really like to press the gas pedal, right? So we'll be watching to see if the SPY can even make it back to the VWAP today. I know that they'll be on my radar, especially because there's those days where I've seen it, where the market just continues to stair step higher. And it's hard to chase, right? Because the stocks are already up 6, 8, 10%. And then you're like, well, if I get in here, is it going to quickly pull back to the VWAP? Things like that. So I think today will be definitely one of those days where scalping might be available, trend trading might be available. So we'll see what happens there in the market.
Yeah, and we mentioned this from a long-term point of view too, Mitch, that as soon as we undercut this low that everyone in the world was watching and reclaim that and then held it the next day, that you got to imagine there's a whole bunch of shorts that got trapped in there. There's a whole bunch of longs that, they got stopped out, and they have to get involved. Especially if you're an institution, you need to be involved, especially if the market's doing, 1.5% days. So I personally think that there's just so many people trapped here to the short side or not invested enough that it's going to be time to rally, which is great as someone who is a swing trader and investor, and I own, an uncomfortable amount of stocks that I bought at this day. I'm more worried looking at my day trading, which I'm excited to try this algorithm at, and kind of worried that these aren't going to get involved at these prices. So I may have to watch this FMA. Another thing that I've done is I've drawn some VWAPs just to see if I can get maybe involved before or above the algorithm price, which would be good. So I have a VWAP from the pre-market range, and then I have a VWAP from yesterday's as well. So I'm going to watch those two, try to come up with some ideas to enter my paper trading short while I'm still trying to figure out these systems. So and again, FMA and FMCC were the only two on the list, but they're kind of the same thing, right? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are going to trade almost in sync, in lockstep together.
And of course, we'll see if, what happens in oil. I'm watching that right now. I'm looking at it. Exxon, of course, getting a little bit of a lift today. Chevron continuing the rally, right? So I think this is something to watch out for, right? And it's something that might take a little bit to show up in the inflation. But if there is inflation concerns, it's going to be, of course, we get oils to start spiking again. I know you got USO up there. I'm not sure where USO is, but I like to look at like kind of WTI, right? Just basic WTI front futures month. And of course, that's trading right now at 78.40s. This might be a little bit delayed, right? But looking to see what happens if we could actually get back into like the 80s, right? 80s and 90s can really start to make some inflation start to show up there. Of course, if we get to 100, this will be a whole nother story. So keep your eyes on that, right? I think that it's nothing that I'd be trading right now, at least in my eyes. I'm waiting to see if that keeps developing. If inflation keeps showing up, one of the easy signs that can show up in is oil and, of course, the basic materials. We're seeing steel get the spike, right? We're seeing gold get a little bit of a spike. Silver, are we going to call it the ugly cousin or the pretty cousin?
The crazy cousin is all you got.
The crazy cousin. There you go. And so that was moving yesterday, right? I was looking at GOLD today. What are you seeing there, Michael? Are you seeing anything in kind of the gold and stuff? I know Michael Katz also takes a look into the futures and like kind of how that's showing up. So maybe he has some insights there.
You know what? I don't. I do look into the future, not futures.
Yes. See, that's been my problem with day trading. I don't have that ability. I gotta.
I think that's what the future is all about, right?
Right. So I'm looking at the CL, the crude oil, mostly in hourly chart or 4H, pretty pumped, and it's just ranging. So I don't have a whole lot to say here. Obviously, a classic move will be if we can break this support level at around 77. ish, and then break it, retest it, and then we have nice move to the downside, roughly $2, maybe even $3 to the downside. And again, breaking through this area, retesting it, that could also work. So either way, kind of rangy. It did a crazy move from 67 all the way to 79 in the last few days or weeks. So it makes sense that we will see a drop more than just a push to the upside.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. If the trend could continue, one that I like that has it's a late mover is MPC, Marathon Petroleum Corp. So I'll show you guys that chart really quickly here, and it's interesting setup on the long-term weekly. So you can see kind of that trend line. It's starting to kind of bottom out. A lot of volume came in on that down day through the 140, and now we're starting to get back through that. So we'll see if this can really get back there towards 160. I'd just be watching this one to see if oil continues that breakout or kind of pushing. Yeah, we'll see if these can start to play a little bit of some catch up. All right, guys, let's take a peek into the SPY here. It's a 9:25. We got about 5 minutes for the open here. So I'll review some of my playbook. And of course, if you guys have particular plays you guys want to call out, let's go ahead and just reiterate those. So for me today, AMD on the top of my list. It was on top of my list before. What am I looking at? I'm looking at these bottoms right here on the chart, right? The last 3 days, you got 114.45, you got 114.41, and 114.50. To me, that's solid support now. And you've washed out the bulls, right? So you washed out all that action here at the 130s to 120. Now I'm looking to see if the gap gets filled today. That's the first step, right? Fill that gap right here back into this spot, maybe towards 122. 119 is a big level to watch today. We got a spike to 118, but I'm looking to see if we can get into the 119s and start to climb towards the 120. And then Apple, of course, very similar stock, right? You're talking into the tech space. To me, long-term daily trend line coming into play here. Nice undercut on Monday's action, went to 229. I don't expect it anywhere near that anymore. Maybe can touch the line, but looking for it to start to recover back towards the 240. And then GLD, I've talked about that. Basic materials, looking to see if gold can keep going a little bit against some of the plays that are out there right now. Of course, it all depends on the market today, but I see AU as starting to really get going here, as a tendency of trending and leading the action, and gold being a little bit of a laggard, GOLD at least Barrett gold. So we'll see if it can start making a little bit of a catch-up move. All right, I'll kick it to you, Michael. What do you see, and what's on the playbook for you?
Well, yeah, so you were talking a lot about the big cap guys. Now, what I'm going to be focused on, I think, especially when it comes to swing trading and my longer term investing, is that with that inflation print out of the way and the Fed having no excuse not to lower rates, that's going to more benefit small caps, right? And the reason for that, I'm sure we're doing a segment on what we'll talk about later in depth, is basically that they use debt more, they have less cash, right? So lower rates is good for them. If you have a lot of cash on hand and you don't have a lot of debt, then you want higher rates. So these small caps are really, really ripping today, 2.5% on the IWM sector. So if there's any individual sector that I'm going to be trading, it's going to be small caps. And then also when I'm scanning for things and looking for things to potentially buy today to put in my portfolio for the longer term, I'm going to focus on those small caps as well, because there might be this knock-on effect for a couple days where this rotation, right, may occur. Nvidia doesn't really care too much about interest rates, right? Their business model is completely different. And again, they've got a lot of cash and not a lot of debt. So again, a couple percentage change here or there in interest rates isn't going to affect them. But things like regional banks, which make up a lot of IWM, and also biotechs, which make up a lot of IWM. These guys are very interest rate sensitive names. They're huge, right? Regional banks, we talked about yesterday with the PPI segment, that these guys right here are live or die by interest rates. We saw a bunch of them go bankrupt when interest rates rallied too quickly, right? Because of the way that they're set up. So we have KRE up 3% today. So I'm going to be going through looking for some regional banks to maybe put in my portfolio, go down the cap scale, kind of ignore a bit of the big guys and see if I can find some of these small guys to get going. So more of again risk on, right? You see Bitcoin, we almost tagged, we were up to 99,500, so we're almost creeping back to that $100,000 mark. It just seems like, hey, I want to go to where the risk is, because I think that's going to have the most benefit of what we saw today with CPI.
Right, guys, we're getting ready here. What you got for me, Michael Katz?
No, I completely agree with what Michael Hans just mentioned about the small cap. Besides that, I'm looking at the Nasdaq on the hourly chart. Two options for me. One will be a drop to this area of the rectangle, playing with it, holding the position here, and then try to long it. But the classic move for me will be if we can push higher to this area and then start to short it. That is a much better liquidity level right here between the 21,500 to 21,600. So I'm waiting for both to play out. Wood started to drop a little bit.
All right, guys, we're getting ready to go here. We got about 5 seconds for the market to open. Let's get after it, guys. You guys stay safe out there, and you guys know what time it is. It's
TTP time.
Let's go, guys. Let's get after it. Be safe out there, guys. Like always, the market's going to open here. Let's see what we got here. All right, guys. Well, I'll be taking a look to see what sectors are moving. If you guys see anything, let me know. First up first, let's take a look to see what's leading the market right out the gates here. All right, financials, of course, leading the action in the market. Real estate and utilities right behind that. So we'll see what happens there, guys. Take a look at that action. Definitely seeing financials lead there. What's on the downside? Well, there's nothing in the red, but the weakest one is defensive and energy. Technology up also here. Now real estate taking the lead. Of course, some of these were really beaten down, so we'll see if those start to bounce back. Toll Brothers, home builders, things like that, and utilities pushing also. All right, guys, let's get after it, guys. If you guys see anything moving fast, let me know. I'll be watching all around. I'm looking around. That OSTX ripped to $7 right out the gates and then back down into a halt, it seems like, on the $6 down move. So those penny stock traders definitely wondering what the heck happened there on OSTX right out the gates. Little spike, move right back down into $6. So tough one there, guys, on that OSTX.
IWM sitting right on. I just drew a VWAP from right before the news hit. Something, again, my buddy Brian Shannon does a lot. Wants to know what the VWAP is just around the news events that are very important. We're sitting right there now. So I'm going to watch this next 5-minute candle, a couple 5 minutes, just to see if we get a flush down under that. That might be an interesting trade. If we can hold this and push higher, maybe we bounce to highs. But yeah, so the anchored VWAP right before that move. Same with the S&P 500. We came down, we tagged it, and then reversed higher. QQQ, probably just going to be the same thing. So the reason we do this is we're looking for buy programs and we're looking for sell programs in the market. And it's quite often how large institutions will trade. They'll say, okay, I want you to get me around the VWAP from the CPI number. If they do better than that, then they get to buy Lambos and everything. If they do worse than that, they generally get fired. So you see a lot of VWAP and VWAP related action when it comes. And we tagged it just kind of to the tick here on all of the major indexes, and at least we're starting to reverse. But some relative underperformance in the IWM, which is not what I expected at all.
Banks pulling back out the gates on some of them. We'll see if those get picked up. AMD really strong out the gates. I'll be looking for some pullback on that. I jumped into CleanSpark here on the smaller account right there on the 11 break, looking for a little bit of a move, maybe towards 1120s here. We'll see if it starts to pull back, but long a little bit of CleanSpark here in the smaller account.
Yeah, I'm still watching Fannie Mae. Again, the only one from the systems. I actually just got the equity curve in there of the two systems that I'm building. Again, this is going back to the year 2000. So the problem I had with the last time, I mentioned when I built systems, it was too much. It was too much for my old man. I was just spitting out symbols left, right, and center. This one does a couple a day. And again, this one is Fannie Mae. So I think what I'm going to do is it did a little spike right down right before the market opened to kind of 738. So I've got an order kind of loaded up in the paper trader here. And if we can break that, I think that's where I'm going to get involved that name, see if maybe we come into the 2-day VWAP on Fannie Mae. But other than that, everything's kind of chopping. It's like the market's waiting for a second to make up its mind. You know, the bulls versus the bears. If we go into like a 2-minute chart, you can kind of see that we're just very consolidating sideways on IWM, especially on SPY, a little bit stronger, and then on the Qs, yeah, everything's just kind of waiting
Looking
to make
for AMD below 118 here, guys. We'll see if it starts to pull back and gives me an opportunity there. So essentially, it's broken the morning trend, right, where it spiked on the 15-minute. Looking to see if it can come back to that resistance. 118 undercut towards like 117.80s here.
Nvidia started to drop nicely, holding the market. Hood is trying to break to a new high. I would try to short it, but I'm just waiting for a little bit more confirmation.
Interesting. Yeah. So Hood's going to move pretty closely with crypto. So it's going to look pretty closely with your clean spark there, Mitch. So
long AMD, 100 shares there.
It's interesting with that Nvidia sell that Michael just mentioned, and it is kind of, I don't want to say falling apart, but these are some pretty nasty down candles right off the open, and retracing that entire move that it had from that positive CPI number to see the Qs still holding up really well.
Yeah,
the SPY are holding up really well, even with Nvidia just giving it up.
Who's stronger, Nvidia or the Qs?
So yeah, you go to my heat map here, change from the close. The only things that we have down on the day, the big one is the interest rate hedge. So just showing that the market is very much pricing in now more rate cuts. We have healthcare down a little bit, telecom down a little bit, psychedelics, healthcare, more healthcare, and oil and gas equipment. So all of these are kind of very interest rate heavy. And then again, everything else that I'm watching is green to flat. So at least for now, everything's holding very well. But yeah, I think the thing to watch is this Nvidia, because at some point you got to imagine this is going to drag down the market.
All right, guys, watching AMD here. I got out on the break-even pullback there, and I'm looking to get back in if it starts to make the up move. I just wanted to give myself a chance to add at below 118s if it does crack it here. So got out on the break-even there. Was up about really quickly, about like 30 or 40 bucks as it spiked there towards 118.60s. Looking to see if it can hold an undercut of that 118.
Fannie Mae still not doing anything, so nothing to add there. So I'm just keeping an eye on the indexes here, and Bitcoin is something that I watch pretty closely. If I can get this chart to load, let's try that again. There we go. Because again, Bitcoin, whether or not you're a crypto person, I think is a great just risk on indicator. And, you know, if Bitcoin's able to hold here and start to push higher, that's got to be good for the rest of the market and vice versa. And, you know, we have some lows here that if we break, things could sell a little bit on.
Smaller account just got hit on that clean spark pullback there towards the 1075. So out on that one, 305 down on the smaller account. So taking the max hit on that one. That's clean spark on the pullback. It caught me on that 11 break. And then now on that 1070 just cut me out. Just want to let you guys know on that one.
Qubit selling, so some of the quantums giving it back. A lot of people use that bounce opportunity to unload. People mentioning AFRM. I'm sure that's very interest rate sensitive as a name. So interesting looking chart, but not nearly as strong as a lot of the other financials out there. So, you know, when you can get more juice in something like an XLF or a JP Morgan, that's interesting. But wow, look at that. JP Morgan gave back a lot of the gains from last night. So it's interesting. So we're having the SPY holding on here, but a lot of the individual names that I'm looking at are starting to fall down. So we got to keep a very close eye there to see what's holding up the market and could that give. Right now, it looks like regional banks are doing fantastic. We have ARC, which is kind of unprofitable tech, that's doing well as well. Solar, a lot of these things are starting to give up a little bit. So I think the question is going to be how deep until buyers start coming in, if they come in at all. That's the big thing to watch. If we have a little bit of a downtick and buyers are right there to kind of scoop it up inside this candle that happened from CPI, then I think that's just a normal pullback that we can get involved in. If we start to give up too much of that CPI spike, I think that's when I'll probably switch and maybe be a little bit more bearish on the day.
All right, guys. I grabbed AMD on that pullback. I just want to let you know. But Michael, you take control. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Nvidia and the Qs or the Nasdaq, and you can see that it reached, like it closed the gap, right? Nvidia just closed the gap and it bouncing from it. I'm not quite convinced that that's the end and we will see a move to the upside. I'm guessing at first we will see another drop, trying to take more liquidity, maybe around the 130 area, and then a major reversal. Hopefully I'm wrong, because I did take some NASDAQ on my Fivers account. So I'm happy to be wrong, because that means I will win. But
hey, sometimes you gotta play. You gotta be able to play both sides, right?
Exactly. But I'm expecting the Nvidia to drop, and then the market as well. If it will reach those areas of 130, I will try to buy the dip here on Nvidia.
All right, looking to see if AMD can approach the high of the day right now. We're back towards 118.40s here. What a high of the day is 118.69, guys. I'm about $100 up right now. I'm thinking about maybe cutting this and just taking the 100 because I feel like it could pull back one more time to the VWAP. But I'm going to give it a chance to break out here. Let's see if it goes for the break.
SPY held that anchored VWAP that I drew, right? Under it for a little bit, and then we're holding. Same with the Qs, same with the IWM. Barely, but yeah, the relative weakness in the IWM is kind of interesting here. Not from an absolute basis, but just from an intraday basis. Bitcoin's holding on, pushing higher. Same with WGMI, which is our Bitcoin miners. So for now, that pullback is being bought up pretty aggressively by the market here. So that's what you want to see if you're a bull, is that you have a big news event that causes a spike. Any pullback into that spike, you have people very, very aggressively getting involved. Looks like we may break the high a day if you turn off pre-market on the SPY. And then if you turn on RSP, another one that I just like to look at, which just shows us the average stock as opposed to it being very, very weighted to large cap tech. That's doing well. So again, just by looking at this chart right here, you can see that it's pretty much an everything rally. Everything's going up right now, except things like inflation hedges.
Sold a piece there, guys, of AMD there. Just want to let you guys know, sold a piece right at the high of the day, right? So try not to get pretty with it there on AMD. So I'll keep the 100 shares now, break even, to see if how much money I can really make on this. Already took off there about 85. Now we just broke through the high of the day, 118.88. Big level for me is it getting into the 120s, 119s as we start to get away from the down action. And AMD is known as a momentum player, so I'll look for the momentum to continue.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, Michael, the view up that you had on the SPY, that's the same area. It's always the same thing, right? On technical, they all collide with each other. So so that's the exact area of the Nasdaq we talked about, like those two levels, right? This one right here, a pullback and bouncing up, or the next one, in my eyes, the resistance right here. So this is also something interesting to watch when you trade in. You can mix few indicators, few levels, few types of analysis, and once everything is aligned, then you know that it makes sense that you're right.
Yeah, it filters out noise for people using multiple indicators. And it's something I do a lot in my systems where, you're looking for something to sell off and you say, hey, I just don't want an RSI to be oversold. I'll put some stochastics on there as well and put on. And the idea is, again, you're just filtering. You're just saying, hey, I just want less trades, but I want a little bit more confidence. So you're balancing the amount of trades you have versus the probability of those. And that's one big thing that I did from this new system compared to the ones that I started with last week, is I realized that there was just far too many trades for me to watch. So that was flustering me and hurting performance. So then I was able to go through and say, okay, well, let's refine those by adding a whole bunch of indicators to them as well. But yeah, I see that Nvidia you got up there just really rocketing there.
It's AMD too. It's 119, guys. I think we could get a VWAP pullback here in a little bit. So if we get to like 119.50s, maybe even 119.70s, I might just sell it. See what happens there. But AMD rocking and rolling, man.
So I took a tiny short right here as a starter on Nvidia, just to try to see how it reacts to the pre-market area. Let's see how it goes, and I will add more if I'll see it goes to my favor. Basically around those two areas between the 133 and 134, I would be happy to add more to it to get to the point where I'm fully exposed to it, and then see how it goes. Because again, in most cases, you will see the market reacts after the news. You will see it like exactly as it did, pulling back to a level, bouncing up. But then there's a lot of guys that started their positions here, as we did, and then there's lots of liquidity waiting to be taken here. So it makes sense. We will see another drop, take those liquidities, and then a major pull up. That's it.
That's interesting to play. Yeah, both Nvidia and the Qs, because right, they can diverge, as we saw a little bit this morning, but
yeah,
often won't. So that's why I'm just seeing kind of what's happening on the S&P 500 here, because that divergence was really, really weird. So I think you might be onto something there, where yeah, Nvidia and the Qs just split, and usually they're insanely tightly correlated. So
true. And I'm happy to be wrong on Nvidia because of the Nasdaq trade, but yeah. Good day I'm okay, bad day I'm okay.
Yeah, but that's one of those you notice something weird, and sometimes those make the best when something doesn't do what it quote unquote should, right? Nvidia should move with the markets, but when it doesn't, that kind of should raise the hair on the back of your neck and say, okay, well, what's going on here? Can I look a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, it's like a negative correlation when you're looking at the Qs, the SPY and IWM, and you see a negative correlation, right? So one of them is like pulling away IWM in most cases.
All right, guys. AMD breaking 119 there, guys. I'm going to ride this out on the momentum now. I'll show you guys it right here. AMD breaking the high now, starting to push the 119.30s. I'll show you guys right here. Like I like to show you guys the ladder approach that I do right on Trade the Pools charting right here. So do you guys see it? The stop loss, the target profit, and now what a lot of times what I'm doing is just laddering up, right? So as the profits keep going, I'll push the target profit, and as the profits keep going, I can move the stop loss higher, right? And securing profits if it comes back on me.
So what's the ultimate target you're looking for there on?
So really,
AMD?
it's the gap fill first. I can see it tapping that gap fill on the chart on the daily. That low is 120.12. So as it gets closer to that 120 spot, definitely looking to sell it, right? Because at the end of the day, I could see a pullback to VWAP after that. So I'm just trying to ride the momentum to the gap fill and then look to see if it pulls back to reload.
My heat map here is pretty much entirely green. At this point.
Good to see, man. Good to see.
Everything. This red one is going to continue to be red because again, this is
very important to catch that, right, Michael? Because I talk about this all the time. Day trading is more on the gas and brake pedal, understanding that relationship, right? On a day like today, I start yelling at Michael and I start telling the CEO, I'm like, I need more buying power, more buying power. I need more. Because today is that day where, I'm trading one name, but let's be honest. If you grabbed 5 or 6 names of the top names in the market, right? the odds are you're green, right? And so I think that that's what you need to be thinking about. How can I really jump on momentum days to make a lot of money? And then days where it's choppy action, hard to trade, how can I protect myself on those days?
Yeah. No, that's right. And it's something that I struggle with. And one of the things that I'm using these systems for, and I remember an old day trading mentor always told me, he said, you're good as a day trader when you sit there all day and you don't do anything, because you've understood that the market is not doing anything. And
not for you today.
Yeah. And for me, it got hard. Now, I did get triggered. And again, we're just testing these in this FMA. And so far, amazing. Right. So we got triggered into the short here. Again, the idea behind these two systems, the main premise that I'm working with. And again, the reason I tell you this is for what I'm working on, because I came in here saying, hey, I'm really bad at day trading. Michael knows, he's seen it. So I'm trying to build these systems to help me, and then others to show you guys, kind of bring you along in my process. So initially I had built like 6 algorithms, and they all looked good and they were playing off each other, but it was too much. It was too much for me to handle, not being able to just fully automate it and walk away, that kind of thing. So then I limited it to 2. And then the idea is that I'm going to be entirely short biased with my day trading, because I am entirely long biased with my swing trading. So that makes sense. So what the system does, it scans every day for incredibly wide range candles on stocks that are overbought. And then it marks, there's 2 ways to look to enter. One is an ATR extension, which just means it's moved up more than that particular candle in one day. And the other is the break of roughly the 50% mark, or the 2-day VWAP. And again, that's the system that, again, generated these over the last 20 years. So this is day 2 of me trying it. Yesterday was a great day, and so far today is good. So now what I need to do is I need to start working on management and how to do that, because when I'm building these systems, it just assumes an end of day close. I think I could do better than that. So I'm starting to kind of explore ideas on how to potentially trade that. But so far, about 2 hours on this particular trade after looking for that particular breakdown. So that's the idea. And if these start to work going forward, I think the game plan is we'll just do a little segment before the market opens, and I'll go through everything that the system put out that day, and you guys can mark up your own charts, and if you like them. But more, I want you to follow my process, which is from system building, idea generation, to system building and back testing, to paper trading, and then eventually pick up trade the pool, which I kind of look at as the evaluation accounts, is paper trading with potentially a really good outcome. If your paper trading goes well, you get an amazing system, but it's a way for you to test your ideas in something that feels a little bit more real. And if you're right, again, you can get a really good benefit. But then at the same time, if you're wrong, you're not risking your own money. You're not blowing out your own account. You could buy some of these accounts for a really reasonable price. So that's the idea. And that's the only trade so far today. So what I may do is, because I mentioned I drew this anchored VWAP from yesterday, I may look to see what happens if and when we get there. And that's around 680, and take a trade there. And the stop, again, I just have sitting right at the high, so we'll see what happens. So far, I love it, because as the market was hitting new highs, it triggered and worked out. So that's a little bit more evidence. So now it's about, again, trading these things in paper, journaling them, right, putting them into my Trader View journal, and then seeing what I could do better as I start to kind of gather data on myself.
Almost gap filled on AMD, so I'll be looking for a pullback to get back into that. We're at 119.70s. I'm all out, guys. Nice 233 to start the day. Let's keep working.
Nice work. Nice work, Mitch.
Yeah, I think the really good part on this one was getting out on the first trade, right? And then looking for that undercut of the 18, right? And then when it did it, I didn't like freak out and overthink that, right? I just said, that's what I was looking for. Execute, right? That's what it's all about. We're getting some good questions in the chat here. So what do you got here? You guys can take it.
So I think this is for the other Michael on the.
Yeah,
so I did watch that stream.
Here's the real question. Here's the real question.
Okay. Hey, Astrophil. If I open the trade with a chunk set to losange, do I close the first when it hits? No, you add in more to the position. And that's the thing, because you're willing to lose $100, right? And you're only losing $10 instead of closing the position at 10. You can increase that because you have enough space to play around with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's about the risk to reward profile, right? And I think that's what matters here too, is understanding, hey, you got to understand what share size I need for the certain amount of risk, right? And reward, right? If you play too small and it's only about a $10 risk, well, you probably aren't going to get the reward that you're looking for too, right? So I always look at it in just a ratio approach, but it's how you want to take the look on that.
Yeah, that's something that I'm interested in experimenting more with, and potentially with these systems. And I've seen you talk a lot about, Michael, the averaging into position, which very much should differentiate from the audience, which is not doubling down, right? A lot of people confuse those, right? Doubling down is, I bought this thing, oh no, I'm out of money, or right, I'm down money, let me just double, and then if it bounces, that'll be fantastic. Yeah, having a plan before you get into the position. I'm going to add a little bit here, I'm going to add a little bit here. The math to kind of calculate that risk gets a little bit more complicated, but it makes sense to me, because just like we're never thinking that we're ever going to pick a bottom or a top, if you can develop a range and say, I'm going to average inside this range, and then this is the area where I'm wrong, I think that would dramatically increase win rate if done correctly. But yeah, it seems like a skill that would certainly not be something you'd pick up overnight. Would take a little time.
I would love to put it on a system, actually, well, try to build this. Maybe we'll talk it over, Michael.
Yes.
Yeah, well, what I've talked about is maybe like a third approach or something like that, and then the bigger piece at the end once you're in the green. But it's all about testing it. What are you seeing?
No, two things. First of all, I took that short on Nvidia. It's working nicely for now. So I added a few times here. I actually missed that. I told you guys that I want to see between 133 to 134. It did reach that level, but I just missed it, the click. So I added a little bit more here. Hopefully we will see the extra drop on my Fivers account. I took that long, so one here, then the other one here at the bottom where we reached that, as we saw previously on my rectangle on the NASDAQ, added here, covered a little bit here and a little bit here. Not a big trade, but hopefully we will see another drop on the NASDAQ, like going back to those levels, and then I will try to go a little bit more aggressive for a reversal. Let's see.
So yeah, one thing that's interesting here, I'll bring up the SPY, right? So now we have the prior pre-market high that we've pulled into, and then also anchoring another VWAP from that flush low that put us below this VWAP for just a second there. Like Michael mentioned before, they're all lining up in one area. So this pullback may be met with buying in here, which would be great. But I am still fascinated with the Nvidia and the Qs being diverging the way that they are. It makes me think that there's Nvidia and SPY diverging is more normal because there's a lot more in the S&P 500, but the Nvidia and the Qs splitting like that are interesting. So far we pulled right back into this anchored VWAP, which was the prior high or where we broke out of here in the S&P 500. Looks like we're digging in, so I'm going to watch that as well. I haven't gone to see if there's any other news today. Is there? Crude oil inventories at 10:30. And then a bunch of FOMC guys speaking. I wish these guys would just like do this after the markets close. Member Willis, member Goolsby, someone's going to talk right now. So these are not insanely market moving events, but they can be. Right? One of these guys, I don't know if they're voting members or not, but somebody says something that kind of gets everybody interested. So just beware that we have these Fed guys talking for the entire day. So one guy says something right or one guy says something wrong, it can create some chop for sure.
Seeing some real attention going to growth stocks, so that's just telling me more and more. It looks like the rally at least is really starting to spread out. ARKK is the way that I look at that, make it nice and simple. Growth names looking pretty well today, guys. We'll see if they can continue. I'm keeping a close eye on that DJT. We talked about it in the pre-market. It did get a spike to 42. It's back down to the 40.50s, 40.60s. Looking to see if we can make an attempt to 40.30s and try to wash out the lows and then start to work its way back through 41. So that's
Tesla
DJT.
also interesting there. Just break into a new high.
There you
Let's
go,
see if
415.
we can, close above it.
Yeah, the daily trend line that we talked about yesterday now starting to really come into play, right? So yesterday it stopped at 422.64. So we'll see if it can get up there.
Well, not to just harp on VWAP all the time, but again, it is part of my analysis and part of a lot of my systems. But so here's the anchored VWAP from all-time highs, and the reason that's important basically just says, hey, what's your average price if you started to buy Tesla at the worst possible time? Right, you started to buy it right at the all-time highs. You can see that was resistance before back here, and a little bit of resistance yesterday. So if we can get through that, kind of shows a bit of a sentiment shift, saying, hey, now everybody who started to buy this at all-time highs and kind of kicking themselves a little bit, well, they're profitable again. So that sentiment shift can be bullish for the markets. I really like the look of Tesla just from an overall old school chart point of view. Right, you have this channel that's been going on, a nice orderly pullback after this massive move higher. And so a nice orderly pullback is kind of what we want to see. Now we have earnings coming up in 9 days, so 2 weeks from there. We still got a little bit to go, January 29th. But yeah, it's looking strong, especially if we can get above this VWAP right here. Yeah, more and more green every time I look through here. So now we have gold actually holding and turning green. Gold miners right on the cusp. Wouldn't shock me if these guys were red, just because if you're less worried about inflation, it would make sense for gold to move lower a little bit. But so far they're holding on nicely. PSIL, so psychedelics, healthcare, and then this PFIX is an interest rate hedge. So I expect this to be very, very red today as people kind of take off their worries about interest rates increasing. You can do a TLT is another way just to take a look at interest rates. This is going to be inversely related to rates. This is a 20-year. So sorry, as a TLT is moving lower, interest rates moving higher. So we're seeing a big spike in TLT today, just showing that interest rates are selling as people are less and less worried about inflation and have less of a worry that, yes, indeed, we're going to have, not the cuts that we wanted. So it looks like people are a little bit more settling in than that as well. I see someone mentioning Palantir weaker than the markets. Yeah, it had a pretty sizable pullback. It's barely able to get above yesterday's high. But yeah, so it shows that there is some selling there, and that's a really good thing to notice. For someone like myself as a swing trader and someone who looks at relative strength, massive ripping days, just like we said, hey, when the market's selling, you want to look at what they are not selling. And the other way around, if the market is rallying, you want to take a look at things that aren't rallying. If your stock's not up today, might not be the best stock out there, right? You might want to look into something else.
All right, guys, coming up in just about 2 or 3 minutes, guys, we're gonna do a little bit of an interactive time in just a second, and at 10:30 we'll be talking all about CPI, so stick around for that. If you guys want to learn how to go into the report, I'll actually be bringing it up straight from the labor website, right? And so we'll be talking a little bit more about that coming up. That's at 10:30. But for right now, coming up in just a second, we're going to play a little bit of a guessing game, guys. We're going to put a chart on the screen. I'm going to take away the ticker so you can't see it or anything. And you guys are going to guess the chart. So stick around, guys. It's going to be fun. That's going to be coming up in just a couple minutes here. Setting it up here. Q's staying strong, almost breaking through. And continuing into the 516s. What are you seeing?
Yes, I'm just looking at the Qs and Nvidia. Hopefully, we will close below 134 for Nvidia. Or if looking at the Nasdaq, I want to see it below 21,353. If so, I can add a little bit more to my position. So 134 would be my Q. Above it, I will close the trade with a loss. Just looking at both of them to see a little bit more of a weakness, but they're not showing that. Let's see.
So I will say with my mystery chart, I just finished scrubbing it of the names so no one can see. There's a 0% chance any of you guys will figure out my mystery chart. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Getting ready to rock.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, got to.
99,600 on crypto, on Bitcoin. I'm just watching this level because we have that all important psychological $100,000 area. If we get above it, then you have all the CNBCs and all those other networks finally now telling you that Bitcoin's back over 100,000. Sometimes that creates a little bit of rally or euphoria in the overall markets to saying, hey, okay, yeah, we're above it. Things look great. So ARK, like you mentioned, is holding very strong. Nice little pullback. I use ARK just like you were mentioning, Mitch. I also use it as unprofitable tech because that's generally what she invests in, is things that don't make a lot of money now but are going to make money in the future. So the biggest wealth, she got crowned the biggest wealth destroyer of all time last year, but looks like it's making a little bit of a comeback. So we're breaking out of this range, and again, this is a great way to show the animal spirits, because the stuff that she's buying is just stuff that's not doing a lot right now, but again, expect to do it in the future. IWC, one thing I wanted to talk about. So we talk about the IWM all the time. It's the small caps, and small caps are 2 billion up to 2 billion. Microcaps, these are $500 million companies. These are the little tiny junky guys that are just trading off a hope and a prayer. Up 3.15%, showing that not only are we getting into the small guys, that the market is getting into the really, really tiny speculative plays. Now, these guys, this as an index for the long run will generally underperform, same as the IWM, because it kicks out its best players. If you get to $2 billion, you're removed from the micro caps and you're put into the small caps. If you get to 10 billion, right, you're removed from, and then you're put into the mid caps, and so on and so forth. So you always expect these things to on the long run to underperform, but on the short run, it can be, again, another big sentiment indicator. So what we're seeing across the board, if this market holds its gains, is a lot of people just getting very, very happy and putting money to work in risky assets. Right? People are not buying gold and silver right now. They are buying the riskiest of the riskiest names out there. So people, good sentiment, right? A lot of people really happy out there right now.
All right, guys, as the market pulls back a little bit here, I think we'll take our opportunity and do our little mystery chart here. So I will go ahead and get mine ready here, guys. Like always, you guys guess the chart out there. And I'll tell you what, guys, one thing is we're going to be working on is bringing in some more kind of swag and different things like this to reward you guys for playing along, right? And so right now we're going to do the chart, and we'll look towards maybe even this hat. Right? I mean, I know a lot of you guys have asked about it. So look forward to it, guys. We got sweaters. We got it all, man. We're going to be bringing it in. The swag alert out there, guys. So let's do the mystery chart here. I'm going to share a different screen here. I already got mine set to go here, guys. So like always, guys, I'll do mine first. And this one's an interesting. I'll give you guys a little backstory too, right? Because it's fun to give you guys a little story about this chart. And this is one that was a favorite for a while. And there you had a lot of analysts saying, well, this is going to be the next big stock. Well, it turned out it was a real failure type of stock here. So there it goes. This stock actually IPO'd in 2019 and eventually went down all the way. It's at $3 now, but it had a high of above 210s. I remember when this was in kind of the 200 range. I couldn't believe it, but it was all about.
I know.
You know it. Let's see if there's any guesses in the chat already. See if anybody got it.
I have an idea, but
that's an easy one.
Oh yes, no, I got it too.
Yeah. We got a couple guesses. We got Jemiah here being talked about. It's not Jemiah. That's the African Amazon, right? That's what they call Jemiah, but it's not that one, guys. It's another one. It was in competition. I'll give you guys one more clue. See if they get it before you guys give a guess. It could have been in your local grocery store. Yeah. How's that one for a little bit of a nice bonus tip? And this is getting fun. I'm gonna have fun with these definitely moving forward because there's so many stocks. Yeah, Lucid was one of those that I called to, but tell you the truth, no, it's not the dreamer stock, I like to call it.
2019 also. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
This was the thing for a while.
Let's test the boys here. Let's go ahead. Michael Katz, you're the first one that said you think you know it. Well, what stock is this chart?
Wait, do we want to type it in chat and then hit go at the same time?
Yeah, we can do that. Right. We can do that. We can do that. So type it in and get ready to go.
3,
and
2, 1, send.
Send it. Send it.
Oh, I can't. I guess we're both under the same name. But
yeah.
So we both got it.
You can tell double right here. Yeah. Beyond Meat. Yes. How I like to say fake meat, fake profits.
Yeah. Did you ever try it? Did you ever experiment?
No, I did not. I can't do this, man. I like a mean steak. So
hey, we're talking to a vegan here.
Yeah, I was about to say I had it. I didn't hate it. You know, I
mean,
did you try it?
It was okay. For a long time, we ate it. That was one of the only, at least in my country, one of the only substance, like fake meat, as you call it.
Yeah.
But lately they changed the ingredients or whatnot, and it became much less interesting. And also, there are so many other companies. Like Impossible Food, for example, in the States.
Yeah. And that was the big thing I remember when it was being talked about a lot, is that everyone was, and even the fundamental analysis, right? When I, as a technician, I don't give a lot of credit to them, but they're all saying like, why can this just be copied by anyone at any time?
Exactly.
They didn't invent anything. They didn't. It's just you know. It was the same thing. Like why? Because a lot of these partnerships were coming out with McDonald's and all this, but you got to imagine eventually McDonald's is going to say, well, I could do that. Right? I've got billions of dollars. You know.
And I think it was also the environment, right? This one ran into the pandemic, right? And in the pandemic, when people got over that whole I need to go to a different alternative meat for a little while there, right? And I think that's also, and this is why it's so important to time an IPO, right? Of course, they didn't know it was coming, so it's kind of hard to kind of say that you shouldn't have come out as an IPO, but I think that's exactly what happened here. A story of horrible environment for a stock to come out.
Yeah, I also traded the IPO, and a few days after, I actually made a great amount of money on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was worthless after that.
All right, let's go to Michael Nauss's chart here. You got it ready? Let me know when you're ready, my friend. All right, let's go. Let's see what we got here, guys.
I'll give you guys a couple seconds, then I'll give you one big tip. We'll go from there. So it's an interesting looking chart. A
lot of sideways consolidation. Is that down day actually real?
That's down day is real, yeah. And when I give you the first hint, it will make sense why that down day is
that
real.
Down day puts the heart to pump a little bit, right? I think I could just imagine that, unless that was short.
I know what's that day. I remember that day, obviously, but I don't know the specific stock that you're looking at.
Oh,
but I know for sure.
Let's see what's the chat guessing over here.
What's the time frame? So this is daily, and then in a few seconds I'll give you a big hint if people don't get it. But I don't think anyone will.
What price is that? I can't see the price too well.
I cut it out. I thought we were being real sneaky. You were being too nice, right?
Man, you cut the price out and everything.
All right, so I'll give you a hint. And first of all, this is an inverse, so it's an inverted chart.
Oh,
so that
there you go. That
was
helps.
actually an up spike. So that might help.
Oh, okay.
And I told you guys I wasn't going to make it easy on you.
I thought it's the flash crash in May. Like 2010 or so.
Where everything was priced at 0 for a second. People were trying to buy Berkshire Hathaway at 2 cents. thought they were clever.
Is this one the Widowmaker? No, it's not that, because it has to be leverage.
And it's current, not current as of today, but current as of yesterday, because I did it this morning.
And seeing in the chat, someone's going with the MSTR or MSTX or something like that. Not? They didn't get that one right.
No.
Well, keep it going, guys. Guess out there. This one's hard, man. Michael's stomping us a little bit here. We're gonna have to take a look, but definitely. All right, guys. We'll give a couple more seconds, 5 more seconds, and Michael, if you want to drop in what you think the ticker is, you can drop it into the chat there. I'll drop in a guess at least, and we'll see if we got it right or wrong. I mean, who knows?
You know, I don't know. I mean, that's threw me off here.
It's the inverse, right? It messes with our brains.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys will see it once I tell you, I think, right?
All right, I'll go with a guess here. Ready? You guys throw it in there. 3, 2, 1. I threw up my guess there.
It is the inverse of AMC.
Oh, the inverse of AMC, guys. What is that? What's the ticker?
AMC. Right, so there was that spike, invert it, and then falling apart after that. So
okay.
Maybe I was a little bit too sneaky. Maybe we'll make it a little easier for you.
A little bit. I mean,
no worries.
Drug was a good one for the inverse, right? I think that was a pretty good guess, because it looks somewhat kind of the same here. But AMC.
Yeah, man. I still remember when AMC first started going. I was on a show, and I remember being on like close to 4 p.m. and I was like, why is AMC trading 300 million shares today?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the sign. Then the very next day it was already up like 100-200%. And I was like, man, if I would have just caught that a little bit earlier. So, hey guys, look around at charts at the end of the day, right? You never know what you might find. You never know what you might find underneath the hood. There was no reason for AMC to trade 300 million shares that day. No. Well, someone knew something, at least.
Always.
Yeah. And so when you see those big volume spikes on a stock that had no business, no news out, pay attention to that.
I learned a big options lesson about volatility crush on GME. I remember that was one of my first forays into actually trading options. And I bought a bunch of puts right here at the highs, saying, right, this is ludicrous, this is going to crash back down, this is tulips, whatever it is, and was 100% right. But as the thing crashed, the volatility got sucked out of it as well, so I ended up making pennies on these options that I thought I was just going to be a genius on. But as the volatility was sucked out, there was just nothing to have there. But it was interesting times for sure. I remember being on CNBC a few times around there, just trying to explain to the masses Reddit and all of this. The boomers just didn't get it. It's like, there's just a bunch of talking to the guys at CNBC, and they're like, can you explain these posts to me? And it was just the most insane stuff they found on Wall Street Bets. I'm like, no, it's an age thing, right? You had to have grown up on Xbox Live in order to understand what these guys are talking about. Craziness.
Nice. QMCO, one of the top quantum names on the day, up 48.8% up. So definitely one of them at least holding on. QMCO doing really well there. QUBT not far behind, 43%. IonQ 25%, Rigetti up 23%, and then you got some robotics and drone stocks that are moving. AI names Serve, SERV. You got RCAT, and then some AI names like SoundHound AI. Then there's a nice nuclear stock, right? OKLO up a good amount today. That's up almost 11%. We'll see if maybe some of the nuclear names can get a little bit of a bounce. They've been really beaten down. SMR doing better than NNE. Best breed, I still think you still look at GEV. GEV has been doing really well on the daily, and that's just continued. That's just beautiful nuclear stock that I continue to see as best of breed in the space.
SMR I really like, and full disclosure, I own some around when we pulled back into, again, that's the anchored VWAP from this major swing low, and then it's just this support zone. I bought a little bit in my account right here, and I've been owning this for a while. These are going to be plays that are interesting. I like that. I like the call out of robotics because, you know, quantum computing, again, this is going to be one of those that they don't have anything to really sell, but a lot of these other companies are very interested. And like we talked about, when you see the heat map kind of look like this, it means, you know, it's game on. Animal spirits are very turned on, right? We got a 6% on WGMI and 5% on ARC. So people are buying everything they can, very, very aggressively. So the big push up here is kind of happening in the most speculative names. So it does make a lot of sense to kind of go back into those, which is good because, you know, we were talking about trading oil and gas and everything last week and how that's, if that's what's moving, that's what you got to go in, but it's not nearly as fun as trading a lot of these crazier names out there.
All right, market still holding on, still pushing is the cues as, yeah, we've got one VWAP attempt, but ever since then, it just seems like we're just stair-stepping higher, almost back towards the 520 area. And I'll tell you what, guys, there was a lot of bearish action on Monday and Tuesday, but there ain't going to be too many bears at the end of the day if the market continues the way it is right now, up there to 516.60s, and definitely starting to turn things back and getting close towards approaching on the next couple of days. I'm sure we'll be watching for it to see if it can do like a trend line approach back into that space.
Just an update on this FNMA or Fannie Mae trade. I'll just call it Fannie Mae. So it came down into this kind of 2-day anchor VWAP that I was talking about. I took off half the position right there and just holding. So now, regardless what happens, it's going to be a profitable paper trade. So it's good. More confirmation that these simpler systems that just give me 1 or 2 trades a day are probably going to be better for me. So I'll be doing this probably for another week or so, and then try again with another eval account. But the idea is working out, right? Again, the systems are going. So what I do is now I can compare myself to the system. So at the end of the night, I'll run and say, okay, what did the system do this day versus how did I trade it? And I have that benchmark to go against whether or not I'm outperforming them or not. So very, very excited. And again, if this thing starts to work, it will just be part of kind of what we talk about here each day. I'll go through each of the individual trades. As I look through how many trades I expect each day, it looks like 5 is kind of in the high end. So that would be a very busy day to watch, whereas the other one, it was 15 to 20 as well. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that when it comes to system development, because again, I'm very much a proponent of at least being somewhat systematic in your trading. You know, I know guys like Mitch have that skill to be fully discretionary. I don't. So we get to lean on the technology we have. Same thing I do with the swing trading and my long-term investing. Everything comes from a system that I've back tested and I've built, like this one. And then from there, when the prices get near, that's where I do a little bit of discretion for entry and exit.
Righty, that's my cue to go. So just to wrap it up, I added enough for my trade on Nvidia. It looks like it's going against me and gonna take me out roughly with $800 loss. Still, if I'll get back to the market today, I will continue to watch. Okay, I'll continue to watch the next resistance level that we talked about between the 21,500, 21,600 on the Nasdaq, and that will be my area to short it, or to short maybe Nvidia once the market will reach that. Today, tomorrow, whenever.
Cool.
All right. We'll see what happens there. And definitely shout out to you guys. You got a lot of love there, Michael, in the chat. So they were happy to see you back on. And we're looking forward to the next time you come on. So definitely, guys, reach out if at any moment you guys want to just reach out to Michael. Reach out to him, guys. Let us know what you guys want to see on Trade the Pool. There's one thing for certain. Michael's working very hard to bring us new and better things, tools, learning, whether that be maybe it's a package, right? And you're just trying to add to the conversation, give some feedback, right? That's one man that I'll tell you right now, he's really looking into the feedback for you guys. So reach out to us. Let us know what you guys want at Trade the Pool. And of course, we'll do our best to make it happen. Thank you for coming on today, Michael.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care. Good luck.
Take care. All right, getting one Michael out, but we still got Michael Nauss, of course. So I don't know if it was the bad shoulder or the right shoulder that just left, but let's keep it going, guys. Let's do some trading and see what we can come up with. Of course, the market's staying hot, right? We'll see if it can continue hot here. And definitely, I'll bring up my charts here and see what's going on, or you can do a little rundown, Michael. How about we do a little rundown of the market overall here?
Yeah, sure. So again, back to the heat map. It's pretty obvious, unless you're colorblind, right? What's going on here? Everything is nicely green. Going into the S&P 500 continues to hold. So we had this anchored VWAP from this morning and look to see, hey, the average market participant before that news hit, when it comes in, then that's what we look to have hold. It came in, it held perfectly, just basically saying that there's some sort of buying system in place, some sort of VWAP buy to say, hey, I missed the move. We're going to pull back and we're going to hold that potentially. Now, the same thing happened on this VWAP and also when we came in and broke. So that looks great as well. So really just continuing to scream higher. IWM underperformance is kind of interesting to me. That certainly isn't a real print there. That'd be a bad tick, but not getting that move in IWM that we initially thought. Now, a lot of that came from, I think, algos buying the CPI print, so maybe it's just got a little bit extended. But yeah, these small caps are underperforming a little bit. And then we have the Qs moving to new highs as well. And I think a lot of this is Nvidia that looked bad off the open, but then reversed a bit and is challenging this high as well. So if Nvidia ends up breaking out, that can only lift the overall market. I'll answer a question here from Forex Buff about my FMNA. Just probably new here. The idea behind this is that what I'm doing as someone who is not a good day trader, but is trying to get back into it, is a lot of what I do in my swing trading and my investing is I am a systematic trader, right? So I'm somebody who builds systems, who builds strategies, ideas, and I back test them for very long periods of time. This is a 25-year back test on this particular system. And what will happen is every day it will output a couple symbols, anywhere from one, say maybe sometimes none, but 1 to maybe 5 symbols with not only that, but entry prices, exit prices, all of that kind of stuff as well. So the idea is that what I'm going to do is I'm paper trading the systems now before I go live with them. If they start to test well, then we'll just have a little bit of a rundown each morning for a couple minutes and just say, hey, here's what the system's outputted. For now, I'm starting with 2 systems that are 100% short. Both systems are looking to the short side. If they start doing well, then the idea is you just end up building more and more systems. And again, the same thing I'm doing with my swing trading and long-term trading and have done for years is that you come up with one system that ends up working. You take some time to refine, paper trade it, and you start trading it in the real environment. So you have a good feel of how it works. And then as that starts working, you are building more and more systems, because the idea is that every day, not all systems are going to do well, right? Some days are going to be revision of the means days, some days trend following days, some days are going to be momentum days, that type of thing. So you try to develop a system for all of them and then try to size accordingly, where there will always be one thing that will do well. And that's kind of what we're pushing into here. So that's the way I'm approaching it, again, as somebody who's trying to get into this world. And the main reason for it is to diversify. What I do from the swing trading side of things, I'm very happy with and works well for me and all of that. And again, I've been doing it for many years. But when you have something like Trade the Pool, where you can, for a very small amount of money, if you can pass their challenge, you can have somebody else's capital. It only makes sense that why wouldn't I do that, right? There'll be periods of time where swing trading may not perform well. So that I'm going to focus on day trading. So very, very preliminary, right? I started with this particular, I tried another couple systems for the last 2 weeks. They didn't work out too well. There was just too many symbols and too overwhelming. Today or now, this other system is something that I'm very interested in, but it ends up being something that, again, I have to test, right? So it has to be something that I have to go through and go. You don't just take a system that you build a back test like this and say, okay, well, it's definitely going to work, so I'm going to start trading it live. You go from there to some sort of paper trading. Then you go from paper trading to something like trade the pool, where you're not risking your own capital, but if you're right, you'll end up getting somebody else's capital. And then from there, if it ends up doing well, then you go live. So it's a long system. It's the system that most discretionary traders should take with their trading. Most don't. They watch a YouTube video and they say, oh, that's how you trade, and they end up going live with it. So I'm just trying to show you the system of somebody who is how I'm approaching this. I'm not new to trading, but I am new to this kind of trading. So how I'm approaching this from hopefully a little bit more of a scientific way of thinking.
Yeah, right now I'm looking at NNE to see if we get a little bit of a move in some nuclear trade, but I'm watching around because there's some stocks that are kind of leading in this space, right? Like OKLO. We're just getting to push through the 23 spot there. So thinking about maybe a little bit of a scalp there, but seeing SMR kind of continuing to push, seeing if this NNE wants to really get going here. But definitely OKLO, nice little chart there and continuing there. So I like the 15-minute chart on NNE. You can see how it's kind of went sideways there, built up some consolidation, now trying to break that 2310. We'll look to see if this gets running. What I liked about NNE is that when it does run, it has a tendency of running for like $1 or $2 on the profits side of things. And then the downside risk here, even on this day, was like about 50 cents. So that's the way I look at it, right? Kind of like how's the risk to reward when it comes down? How much is this stock usually coming down? Of course, you guys can use like indicators to kind of take a look at that, right? Like an average true range, right? You can see 43 on the 15-minute, 43 cents. So that's the way I'm looking at it here as NNE starts to take 23. We'll look to see if it can get up there towards like 24 is what I'd kind of be looking at. We'll see if it gets that push. Q's holding in, man.
Holding. This is, and for the bull case, is exactly what you want to see. It's a massive gap because of some sort of fundamental shift, and then it holding, right? It's very, very easy to, and you see it all the time. You have a great news event, you have a spike up, and then it just, fills the gap and reverses all day. This is, something that is, again, exactly what you want to see. A news event opening almost right at the low of the day. This is with pre-market action on. Right, so didn't try to give anything up in the pre-market at all. If you turn pre-market off, just a little bit of give back on the morning. So far, just holding really, really strong. So that's what you want to see, is not only a big gap up because the news event, preferably a green close, because that's what, showing that those people are getting involved strong. WGMI now up 7.5%, right? So this is, again, your Bitcoin miners. It's something that I like to watch a lot because Bitcoin miners are a speculative derivative of a speculative asset. So, it's one of those things that it is it's going to move a lot with crypto, but leveraged with crypto. It's like trading a leveraged crypto thing if you're crazy enough to do it. And so looking very, very nice here as these things continue to push higher. Fannie Mae just collapsing, which is great. So again, more tweaking, more testing and everything required. But so far, 2 of 2 days having really, really great trades when it came to both of these new systems. So I'm very excited. It's one of those things that when you start to see the results in the real world, you get really excited that when this stream is done and I sit down and start to work on more systems and test these things, it does give you that motivation to go in and kind of go from there, right?
Looking for a little pullback here to see what happens here. Wanted to play AMD again, but it's just on the pullback right now. I'm thinking we can get maybe below that 118 where I bought it earlier. So I'll be looking to see if it can wash out some of the bulls. It's pulling back, and the Qs are just starting to pull back. So now we're starting to get a little bit of a pullback here. We'll look to see what happens. Micron leading some of the up action in the Qs. That one's a pretty good move there, back through 100. So we'll look to see if it can come back to 100. Good looking move on the daily. That was one that I kind of did a box for a gap fill when we started to come back there. I created it on the 7th. I was wondering if we would kind of hold in there, right? And now we're right back into that box. Let's see if it takes the move and starts to go back into the gap, which is up towards that kind of, what do we got there? A close of 103.90s. So let's see if we can start to hold 104s.
Yeah, it's really it becomes a hard moment to take trades if you haven't taken trades already, just because everything is ripping, right? So what you want to avoid doing is FOMOing it, right? And that's kind of the, I guess, the PSA for today. If you miss the initial push, again, just be very, very careful not to FOMO in, this QMCO that I see you have up there. Yes, it's up 42% today, but it's still down like 70% from its highs. So
exactly.
The worst thing that I think a lot of people could do is see these massive numbers and start to get that FOMO itch of, oh, right, I'm not involved in these names, and I really do want to be involved in these names. So just make sure that you have a plan. You understand that you're gonna miss something. It's just the way of trading, right? I took one trade today so far, and it was a short. Thankfully, my swing count, my big boy count, I'm always looking down at, is just maxed, and was ever since 2 days ago. So I'm having a great day over there. But I will not chase anything up here, right? We're now up like 3-4 days in a row on the SPY, and pretty big. What I'm going to do, even though I'm not too big on shorting, I think it becomes very easy to start making lists of things that have not participated in the move. Because if you can find a bunch of names that aren't going with the market, well, now you've got something potentially. If the market's going to reverse, you're going to have some shorts. So from a discretionary point of view, what I would be doing tonight is just go through take the S&P 500 today. Let's just look at all the names that didn't go anywhere. And then I think you got something, because those names suck. So you can find those things and say, okay, well, let me figure that out. We can just whip up a scan right here, right now on TrendSpider. Let's just do.
There you go, guys.
That are down.
Interesting name, Tempest AI, moving today. Of course, that's been really beaten down, but AI name included in there. I'll keep an eye on it. It had a nice little $3 pop.
Daily close from
ARM doing really well today, and that's one name that I've been keeping a very close eye on. It looks strong, guys. One of the things is ARM was viewed as a very important IPO, right, when it came out. And it's been kind of sideways on this chart. I don't know, a little part of me leans to the bullish side, but it's something that I'll be watching to see if it can go to like 168, 170. Once that happens, there's going to be a lot of bulls watching that chart.
All right, so here is the scanner. So again, this is just a very easy thing to, let's just save that. A very easy thing to whip up, right? You don't need a really fancy scanner at all, but I'll pop over my screen here. And so I just built this, and this is the kind of work that you want to do. If you think the market's overextended and the market's going to roll over, then I just created a list, and I pointed it to the S&P 500, and I just called it things that are not up, and it's just going to give a list of everything that is down on the day. So I would start to take a look at a lot of these names, try to figure out why they were down and what's happening here. And now you've got a list of potential short candidates going into tomorrow. So Lululemon, there's a perfect example. Everything in the market, and if we go over here, everything in the market's ripping. Look how green the overall heat map is. And Lululemon's down 2.9%. So that's not doing well. So it makes you think that if the market turns and reverses and starts to sell tomorrow, maybe that's going to be something in which Lulu is going to get hit extra hard, because even on the best day ever, it couldn't get going. So there's some news that's happening, that's going on here. So Lululemon is weak. A lot of these names, CBOE. Now, what you want to do is you want to avoid, if you see something in here that's a defensive asset, like if I see General Mills in here, for example, being down on the day, I'm not too interested in that, because it's a defensive name, right? People buy General Mills when the market's going down, and then they sell it when the market's going up, because it's that consumer staples. But if I see things that are not consumer staples, then hey, they're going to have a move. So ADP is air product and chemicals, and you can see it reversing off of this level right here and pushing to new lows. So this would be one that I'd watch as a swing trader. If I do think the market's getting a little bit overheated here and I want to short something, then it would come from this list. I can just go through this list and say, okay, I don't want to short the stocks that are up the most, especially on a bullish day. I want to short the stocks that are down the most. So ABB, Hasbro, ooh, it's an ugly one there. It looks like we'll be breaking into new lows.
Yeah, I think that's all concerns of inflation coming from China on those goods.
Oh, that would make sense. That's probably where all the toys are made, right?
Yeah, literally.
So yeah, just start going through them. Ralph Lauren, not doing well today. Yeah, so this is the kind of work you do, and this is the exact opposite work that I do on a really bad down day. So we mentioned when the S&P 500 was down here that during this undercut and rally, as we were breaking through there, in my big boy account for my swing trade, I was buying hand over fist. I'm long from kind of this day on leverage on my swing personal swing account. And the reason for it was if we reclaim that support, I thought there was a lot of people that were kind of caught off guard, and I'm going to take trades off it. So how I did that was looking for things that were pulling back but holding strong when the market was not holding strong. And you flip that, right? And you say, okay, well, instead of doing that when the market's up, let's just flip that. Let's just say, show me everything that's down. And I just have this list sorted by how much it's down. So, right, Kellogg's and everything like that. Again, I'm going to ignore that. But VRTS, which is down the most on the day. So tomorrow, if we get a weak day, this could be one to watch. So just little things that you can do that you can really only do on really impactful days like this. I wouldn't every up day, I wouldn't look for stocks that are down. Every down day, I wouldn't look for stocks that are up. But on really big days, on days that everything was rallying today, you got to start looking at some of these names and saying they're sick. There's something wrong with going on here with things like Lulu and CME and CBOE, where they should be getting involved in the upside, but they're not, right?
Yeah, there's definitely some weakness out there, and I think a lot of that, at least from what I see, is in some of the cyclicals. So I'd be looking at that to see what's down there, and I see resorts and casinos, leisure down, apparel down, department stores, restaurants down, footwear and accessories. So what are you seeing? Like we talked about yesterday, right? That to me, that shows more and more the spending going down in January, right? So the people are not looking at those names. Even like, let's say like an A&F. A&F put out a good guidance that they had great holiday time, but it's going down, right? And a lot of that's going down just based on the timing. I think this is more seasonality coming against these names. So I was watching to see how the XRT would react as GME also came off the highs, right? And we were talking about that one just a day ago, and that broke down big. So I think this is just a really tough area to be in right now. Macy's going lower. I talked about how, man, I should have taken that swing trade on that one. That one's gonna. I talked about it when I talked. I said maybe single digits in 2025. Yep. It's at 13, right? It's not far from single digits. And when you think about it on the chart over time, I mean, Macy's was down here in 2023. And it looks like it's heading pretty close to there. It's not just that one too, right? It's KSS down 1.69%. So just goes to show you department stores really getting hit. Even Walmart has been on the pullback. Costco has been on a pullback, right? You're seeing Target take a beating a little bit today, and this looks a little bit more like it's starting to slow down on that rebound and could be coming right back down, I believe, that 136. We'll see what happens there. Definitely some weakness around certain areas, but there's some strength out there too. So I'd continue to watch the strength to see how that performs. Leading the overall market from the open is technology. And right now, this is why I look at the 15-minute also change, and it's down right now. So pullbacks right now, I'm looking to see some strong names pull back and seeing if I can catch them. Apple was on the playbook today, and that's doing really well right now, right? So we'll see if that can continue to hold. It hasn't even come back to 237, which is the VWAP. Shows me more and more one of those stair-step days right now. At least that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, 100%. I think you can do the same analysis with the overall market when you're talking about these large caps. You need to see some amount of give back, right? So here we have the SPY sitting back on VWAP. If we just bounce from here, then you probably won't get those pullbacks that you're looking for. The other thing that could occur, and quite often I find happens after you have those major news events, is just chop, right? You have this kind of sideways action in which a lot of people out there, they're like, well, I've made my money for the day, right? That opening was amazing. And when you have really strong, especially opening drives, I think you see a lot of traders go to lunch a little early and then kind of avoid a lot of things. So for me, I'm more interested in what happens if we end up breaking to the downside. So that's going to be my focus, is that holding this anchored view up, I think, is going to be really important for the rest of the day. And if we start to lose that, do we start to sell into the close? This, for me, is one that I'm going to be laser focused to the kind of last hour, last half hour of the day, because a weak close today could mean that people took profits when things were spiking. A very strong close today just means that, hey, the people came in and bought, because, you know, the old saying, I'll say it over and over again, the amateurs open the market, the professionals close it. Again, just meaning that if you're a large multi-billion-dollar hedge fund, you're generally waiting. You're not trading that opening few minutes, right? You're doing some sort of buy or sell system throughout the day. So that close, I think, is going to be everything. Now, you know, if we close weak, and I'm not saying that the rally is completely over, it just might mean we start to maybe fill in this gap over the next few days, right? If we start to pull in, totally normal if we go from this kind of 591 and then say we pull into 585 and then move higher from there. If we don't get that, then I think there's going to be a bit of a ripper. It's one of those that there's a lot of people, again, that were caught off guard. We talked about it this morning, Mitch. The sentiment out there was horrible. Everyone, the sky was falling, the world was coming to an end when the market was down 5%. So I think, I personally am still very bullish, because I think there's enough people caught off guard that there's got to be a little bit of a short squeeze and a little bit of a long squeeze along with it.
And Trump's coming in office pretty soon, and you know, he's has a couple of things in line, right, to try to move the markets. At least that's what I would feel, because especially, you know, he's going to have that big inauguration, right? And there's a lot of big corporate names that are expected to be there, right? You got Elon Musk, you have Bezos is going to be there, you got Zuckerberg, you got a lot of big executives that are going to be there. And why are they there? They want support, right? And so in my eyes, I thought that, hey, is this just the big scare before Trump gets in office? And it could clearly be that, right? Clearly be the big scare before they rip the markets away from you. That's what I always think about. That's why I'm asking more what big money is doing versus small money, right? Because small money is scared on these 5% corrections. Michael, you know this. The big boys, they don't get scared on those corrections. Not unless the market's halting down or something like that, are they getting frightened on those moves. If anything, they get their big boy pants on. They're getting ready to buy in moments like that.
Well, yeah, and because, again, you got to remember, their job is not even really to make money. A hedge fund's job, it's not to make money, it's to beat the S&P 500. So, you know, it's one of those, if the market sells off dramatically, as long as they got out at a decent price, they're okay. You know, if you go to your clients and the SPY's down 10% that year and you say, I only lost 5%, they love you, right? So it's not the same goal we have. So you're 100% right, where when the market starts ripping, their fear is their underperformance of the S&P 500. So if they don't own enough, they have to start getting involved, and they have to start getting involved aggressively on margin, using derivatives, whatever it takes to kind of amplify that overall return. So there's, you know, the way they look at it is that if they can get a sick dip, if they get a 5% dip, and say the market goes back to all-time highs and it doesn't move for the rest of the year, well, the market was flat for the year, they made 5%, everyone loves them, right? And that's all they're trying to do, is if they can eke out, because their lives aren't as easy as ours, right? They can't buy and sell as quickly as they can. They can't go to cash, you know, when they're a little bit worried, and then buy the next day if they're excited. So looking at, you know, what it is that they're looking to do and knowing their motivation, I think is huge when you're coming into the market. Because you're right, it's not us that move the market, right? Wall Street bets move the market on one stock for a little bit, and it took kind of a worldwide phenomenon to do it. So yeah, we're definitely not moving the markets day to day. It's those big guys. So yeah, understanding what their motivation is, which again is just, if I can beat the market by a couple percent a year, you know, I'm a hero. That, you know, they'll give me all the money in the world. If I had outperformance that could handle billions of dollars, and I could beat the market by 4 or 5% a year, then again, that's all I need. So I'm with you. I think they have to start buying aggressively. If we start ripping here, that buying is going to get more buying. And then again, the inauguration is going to be big, because I think I remember I read an article or something last time that he has 100 executive actions that he's going to do day one. So he's going to walk out of the inauguration. He's going to sit down. So what those are is going to be huge. What is he signing into law? What is he, who has impressed him enough and made their case well enough that he's going to do something to help them? I think the fallout from that first day is going to be felt in the market for the next couple of weeks. So that's going to be really exciting to cover.
Yeah, I think that's very vital, right? And there's one theme today that's really getting hit hard that I want to let you guys know on. I always like to catch something if it's now all of a sudden starts to get weak, and it was hot. The airlines getting attacked today, guys. Of course, the best of breed there has been United Airlines. It's been a crazy daily chart. I mean, when you think about it, since September, this is up, what, 182%. So, I mean, that's a crazy move for an airline, right? Now we're starting to see the turn, right? And I think that you got to continue to watch to see what's happening there. But I did see some leisure taking some hits today. So that tells me more and more, just keeping an eye out to see what happens there. Are we going to start to see a little bit of some pullback in some leisure? Airbnb is doing well today, so that might help a little bit there. But the airlines are the ones where I'm really seeing that disaster. So definitely some big pullback on that. DAL down about 1.77. You got Love down about 1.5. So even though the market's having a really good day, a lot of stocks in the green, there's still some pockets that are starting to see that downside. And I'm also seeing defensives down big, of course, on a growth day. Not many people want to be in those defensive names, right? And if they do, they usually rent them, and then they're right back out of them, right? So we'll see what happens there. Defensive definitely taking a hit. Basic materials not as strong as some expected, right? The crazy cousin taking the hit right back down, right? So AG definitely right back down, right? It was just up there to 6, looking like it's going to break. Now it's back down towards the low. So these are definitely trades that come and go, right? And gold also pulling back. With GLD, not too bad of a hit there. AU, let me take a look really quickly. AU kind of holding in there. That's an interesting one. A lot of times AU can go against the trend. That's the weird one. I'll tell you right now. I've traded in the past where I've seen GLD not going anywhere, but AU leading. And then what I usually do is, if I'm not trading AU, I'm just waiting to see a day where it trades in line, right? Where AU is also going up and gold is coming with it.
Yeah, it does kind of make sense though. The gold and silver sell, right? If
exactly, again, on a day like today, right? That's usually the sign for safety, right? If you're seeing those start to make the move. Do you really think that that's a safety trade anymore, Michael? I'd like to ask you, because I feel like I heard that for so long in my trading career, right? I mean, buy gold when the market's getting hit, right? But it doesn't seem like it's always just that easy, right?
Well, it's hilarious because we can go to the monthly gold chart, and during 2021, 2022, even 2023, when inflation was high and everyone goes, oh, gold is an inflation hedge, you should buy gold when you're worried about inflation. Maybe on the short term, but it certainly didn't happen during this period of time where we saw the highest inflation that we have since the 70s, and gold didn't move. And as soon as inflation started to come down in 2024, all of a sudden gold rips. So I don't really agree that it is. I think it's more of a speculative asset like anything else. People trade it based off whatever reason they think of. But if it was an inflation hedge and if it was a bear market hedge, you would think during 2022 and 2023, when we had a bear market that was driven by inflation, that you would have seen gold recover there, but not so much. So maybe they're talking on shorter term time frames. Again, it makes sense that it's flat to down today, because in theory, people are worried about rates. I think that's going to be more of a driver than gold than anything else, right? If rates are zero or near zero and I'm worried about the market, it kind of makes sense to own something like gold. But if I can get 5% on a bond and I'm worried about the market, why wouldn't I just go buy that bond, right, and make my guaranteed 5%? Why would I buy an asset that doesn't give me anything. And same with Bitcoin. People said, oh yes, Bitcoin is the place that you want to go when you're worried about inflation and worried about the market. It did the same thing, right? 2023, 2022, it did near nothing. And then when the market gets good again, these things break out. So I think it's to the point now where it's a little just too simplistic to say, hey, you buy gold when the market's down or you buy Bitcoin when the market's down. I think it's one of those things where you got to look kind of holistically. And yeah, something like gold that doesn't generate anything when it comes to income for you, it's better to buy something else. Better to buy, especially in a high interest rate environment, buy bonds, right? If you're really worried that the market's going to go down now that interest rates are as high as they are, bonds is great. You just make your 5%, take a nap, come back when you're more bullish about the market and you think the market's recovered, and then take your swing, take your shot then.
In the market, bounced a little bit there on the Qs, and it looks like it's held there. It didn't come back to the VWAP, and I'm wondering if we even go back to the VWAP. AMD starting to get strong again here off the 118.50s, trying to recover the VWAP. So I'm watching the 15 on the 9 EMA pullback look. I'd like to see if it can get back to the 118.60s here, and then maybe I can risk off of 118.50s or like 40s right here. I'm looking for an AMD pullback right now, and then the rip back into the 119s. Let's see if the Qs go right back to the high, just quickly right back to the high. If not, I'll look to see if they break down through 515, which is kind of that pullback look where it was just at, right, where it just hit like a couple bottom looks. I'll look to see if it washes through that. If it does get through that, I could see a VWAP pullback kind of coming into play. That could be back down to 514 and a little bit of some pullback action on the stocks that ripped higher. So let's see what happens with that one.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I'm going through some of the sectors here, and one of the sectors that you guys know I've been watching here for potentially the play in 2025 has been the psychedelic sector, which is actually down today, this PSIL. And the reason that's interesting to me is just going through my scanners of kind of what's really rocketing today. MindMed, which is a big part of this PSIL that's down on the day, was up over 10% at one point today and is now sitting up 7%. So we're starting to see some of these moves, and even MSOS down on the day. So there's not too much that is not doing well, but yeah, these, again, it's one of those things. If your stock cannot get going today of all days, it might be time to reevaluate that name, because it means they're buying everything except this particular sector or this particular name. So it's one of those things that we would need to see if you're at all interested in MSOS. That should happen today of all days. Up 1.7%, but you can see it is barely anything, just hanging out here at lows. Another thing is RSP. So your equal weighted S&P 500, again, the more of the average large cap stock, still up because it participated in that gap for sure. The push down, right, is more pronounced, right? If you just look, red candle hitting lows of the day, so obviously well under a day VWAP at all. Then you look at the S&P 500, doing way better. If you look at this candle, a green on the day, holding strong. So this is just telling us that this is a little bit more of a tech driven rally as opposed to this everything rally that we've been seeing for the last little bit. Everything is up from the close, but yeah, things are starting to fade a little bit from the open, leaving a lot of the tech here. And you can see that on the heat map, right? WGMI, Bitcoin, ARK, Block. A lot of these names are all tech driven, and then starting to drift down a little bit on it is corn and wheat and boat. So again, a lot of these things, again, still strong because of that gap, but intraday, it seems like where the real money is going into, because a lot of this money isn't going to trade in the pre-market. There's just no volume there for them. During the day is what you want to focus on, and that seems to be super heavily tech driven.
All right. Well, the Q's starting to approach that 5:15 now, starting to pull back. So I will be looking for a little bit of that afternoon lull, right? So pull back towards the hourly 9 EMA. Maybe the Q's coming back down towards like 5:10s, 5:11s. I'll look for AMD to come back into the below that 118. I'll be actually looking for like more back towards like 117 in the afternoon. See if we start to get a ramp up in the afternoon again, right? So lunch period where we get some pullback, some names start to pull back, and then I'll look to see if the momentum comes back into the market towards the close. Of course, like Michael said, when the professionals start coming back into the market. And the same thing I did yesterday, Michael. I traded JPM, right?
Yep.
Real simple. Did a real like simple played out trade, risked $50, looked to make 200, just opened it, set it, forget it, and hey, made the money, right? And I think that was more just the market coming back yesterday with the financials going with a nice little spike and didn't get too pretty with it. Same thing with AMD today, taking that 233. Not saying that AMD is going to 130 today, right? Because could have very much been like, oh yeah, I'll just keep holding this and looking for it to keep going 130, 130. I took it right before that kind of the gap look. And I think if it can just close the gap today, let's say later in the day, closing up there towards past 120s, I mean, yeah, this chart will be looking a lot better. If it closes back below 118s, doesn't look that great, right? And so whenever I try to call turns, a lot of that times you want to try to make some money early in that turn, then look to see if the trend can actually stay. Then I'll go back to the trade to see if I can actually ride the momentum for a little bit of a bigger trade. This is usually when I'll do like a day trade here. And then I'd look at it now in a swing trade perspective, right? And start taking a look at that. Now, can I see this actually change trend, get above that 9 EMA and start to hold a close above that? Right now, it's still just barely turning, just barely.
Yeah.
We'll see if it really gets going.
Yeah, 100%. That's going to be, like I mentioned before, that's what I'm doing as well. You know, walk the dog, get something to eat, kind of avoid that lunch drawdown. But I'm going to be very focused on the close because, as you mentioned, those closing candles are going to be important when it comes to AMD, when it comes to the SPY. If we're getting a strong close, then that shows that there's a lot of people that got caught off guard by that CPI print, that CPI number. And that'd be great for us, right? It means we can enter, we can sneak in on the close when they're buying, hopefully get a couple day rally. The S&P 500's got room all the way up to 600, which is like 10 points from now. That'd be great if we could get a couple trades going on in there.
Yeah, and we'll see if the banks can hold on too. I'd like to see if the banks could close green today, and that would be especially telling, right? Because JPM has pulled back a little bit here. It's trying to like hold on, right, through all this, right? I think that one thing that I'll be watching in the afternoon, does JPM just start leading, right? Just start ripping towards like 255s, and then you see the financials start coming back and start to really kind of push. Just in the last 15 minutes, they're only up 0.09. I'd look to see this go closer towards kind of where it is from the open, 0.82, right? So we'll see how some of these banks perform. Of course, tomorrow we get Bank of America, we get Morgan Stanley. They're doing pretty decent right now. So we'll see what happens with those. That's going to do it for us. Any last words for the traders out there, Michael?
No, just I think this closing print today is going to be super important. So write off some time at the close or after the close to go through a handful of charts. And again, if you think this market's overdone, I think that exercise of just taking the entire S&P 500, show me everything that was down today, going through those charts, I think would really help into tomorrow's action.
All right. In a day like today, don't forget that those day trading accounts, you still got 10% access in the overnight hours, right? So you could maybe take a trade there. Of course, it's going to limit your exposure. Essentially, they're also to protect you. But let's go ahead. We'll see what happens with that. And we'll see what we can come up with tomorrow, guys. Stay tuned, guys. Like always, we'll keep trading here, keep battling. Tomorrow's Thursday, last day at least for our trading action. Of course, on Monday, we'll be off. So I think it's going to be a pretty hot next 2 days before Monday's, of course, break. We'll find out, guys. Smash the like, and we'll be back with you guys right here on TTP Live.
See you guys.